Close the doors of your mind from all carnal will, all carnal thought, all emotions, all desires, all fears, all laziness, all doubt, all hatred, all jealousy, all envy, all strife, all complaining, all pride, and all fornication and adultery, all the erratic religions, all the powers of Mastama, and all of the beings in the underworld, in Tartarus, where they dwell, and all the demons and the shadim that has plagued one throughout their life, even throughout the week, because of one's, ignorance, and also for one's own test. And bring your mountain balance within yourself, within your 12 cranial nerves, within your 12 melanin centers, within your hands and your feet that control the rest of your body, within your axon, your dendrites, within your RNA and your DNA. Within your inner being, your inner belly, from your belly button to your mouth, from your stomach to your mind, from your stomach to your mouth, to what comes out of your mouth, that can breathe out lies and breathe out truth. For today is a day of freedom. Today is a day that Yahuwah has given to us as a Natan, a gift, as another Shabath, that we may cease from our labors and our work on this second day of the second month, according to the second letter of the Aleph, which is Ba'ith, which is house, tent, tabernacle, dwelling place, Mishkan, Mikdash, Sukkah, at the house of Yahuwah. That know ye not that your body is the house of Yahuwah, and knowing that in that house dwells many things that one has to furnish and put in order, not only within yourself, but also within your own household. So as we move forward in kindness, ahab, joy, peace, patience, meekness, temperance, amunah, but we will in no wise clear ourselves of guilt within ourselves, and not judge impartiality and judgment within ourselves, as one walks by the way, when one lies down, when one rises up, as one talks, when the bar talks to you, when you rise up from your actual slumber and your sleep. So this Yom, this seventh day, this seventh letter of the Aleph, sword, not rest, law, word, perfection, we acknowledge the one who made all of the har of the earth, all the mountains, all the nahar of the earth, the rivers and streams, that all serve him, all of the creatures and the animals and the behemoth and the remes and the oath, and all the animals that serve him, that give life and understanding, that he gives life and understanding to, and the rain and snow that he gives and feeds them. Even that natural understanding gives us an understanding of who we are in the inward man and our inward being. So are we not greater than many sparrows? Are we not greater than many animals and things in the field? Are we not greater than the things in the sea? Are we not greater than the things that fly in the shamayim? Are we not greater than the things that creep in the ground, just like the smallest ant, and picks up a breadcrumb and puts it inside of their den and getting ready to celebrate and harvesting their den? Are we not greater than them? He says, so why would one not walk in the image and likeness of Yahuwah? So as we move forward in kindness, ahab, joy, peace, patience, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. We move forward in the 9 things that Yahuwah wants to see inside of us. For if we lose our gentleness and we lose our self-control, then we'll be outside of his Malkut. Right? So this is the book of the Nazarene, actually the Shalakim, suggestions of the old serpent. You say, why do we always start here? Because the serpent, the Nakash, Satan, Satanom, is not going to stop, right? So he says what? Above all, therefore, you ought to understand the deception of the old serpent and his cunning suggestions who deceives you as it were by prudence. Why? Because he has so many erratic religions in the world. He done took the Torah and all these books and mixed them all together in a blender, and he just sent them out all throughout the world. Now everybody's trying to figure out what to do. And as his cunning suggestions who deceives you as it were by prudence. Why? Because he comes into your mind just like a smoke. And he suggests you all types of things that you should not do, things that makes you question your belief, make you question your amunah, make you question the things that's happened up until this point. And as by sort of reason creeps through your senses and deceiving you a great gain. Therefore he enunciates in your mind of, opinions of Elohim whatsoever kind. Why? He comes into your eyes, your 2 ears, your 2 nostril holes you got, your mouth that's right there in the front of your body, all down the center of your body. He comes down through those things. And you know what he does with them? He comes into your right ear and tries to pretend to be Yahushua Mashiach. And he'll come in your left ear and try to make it seem like you're hearing him from a Malaki. And guess what? And he'll deceive you in your mind. And you'll be like, what is that? This must be Yahuwah, right? And it says right here, therefore he enunciates in your minds opinions of whatsoever kinds, only that your sins may be is his comfort. Why? Because the wages of sin is death. He wants you to go to. He don't want you to attain eternal life. He wants you to go to be in death. He wants you to die. That's the only reason he doing it. It says, for his immorality was condemned from the beginning to eat dust, right? Just like Chdsh, because Satan was in the Chdsh, but in the Chdsh, the serpent was a living being standing on 2 feet. Matter of fact, he was walking around. Matter of fact, that's you. He said, what? He said, yeah, that's you. Because he was on 2 feet, walking around. Matter of fact, the Chdsh was more wise and crafty in the garden. Matter of fact, he was just like you. And you know what happened after that? He ended up deceiving somebody and getting them to go against Yahuwah's the bar. And you know what happened after that? Yahuwah judged him and said, on your belly you shall go, and you're gonna be a servant. You're gonna bruise her heel, and she's gonna bruise your head. You be like, why he said that? Because that's what happens when you use the bar and use it deceitfully and you cause people to commit sin. Just like Matthew 12:18 says. He said, woe unto you cause one of these little ones who believe in me to sin. Because this would be their comfort. He said, woe unto you. He said, it'd be better that a great millstone be tied around your neck and you be cast in the midst of the sea than you to deceive one of these little ones who believe in me. One of my virgin children. It'll be, and people say, what does he mean by that? What does Yahushua mean by that? Right, and it says right here, verse, for his immorality was condemned from the beginning, he does. For that, he caused to be again resolved into the dust him who was taken from the dust. Why? Because you just now caused somebody else to die. So by your behavior, a person's behavior, the words they say, the slander they do, the gospel they do, the lies they tell, you literally are the person. You are now condemned to eat dust. You are now, he said, you condemned to death. And then you cause somebody else to commit sin. He says, look what you just did. And Yahuwah going to judge you, not the person, right? Even till the time when your beings will be restored, right? Because you're going to rise from the grave. Amazingly, we're in this 364-day cycle, and we're now on the 7th celestial circle when the sun is now coming back. And everything that's in the ground that was in the dust that you couldn't see, now they're rising up out of the ground. Amazingly, you can see that naturally in the world. And guess what it says? He said, result of dust will be taken from the dust, even till the time when your beings will be restored, being brought through the fire, because the sun coming back. And you can see it right now. You can see it clear as day. The sun is coming back. Ayin ish lapi. He's just like the sun, just like the rays of the sun. As we will instruct you fully at another time, right? You even did it so many times. But from him, therefore, proceeds all error and doubts. That's what happened in the gun. And the very same thing happens to you in your mind. The very same thing happens to you when you sit in the house, walk by the way, you lie down, you rise up. People try to get you to doubt what you believe. They try to get you to doubt what you're doing. They try to get you to doubt the 364-day cycle. They try to get you to doubt the actual 7 celestial circles. They try to get you to doubt the very things that you know. And the 22-letter alphabet, they try to get you to doubt the things you do. Why? Because they don't want you to know. And being that they don't want you to keep it, that's Chdsh. That is Chdsh. And that person, that human being that looked like a human being is a reptilian. That person is a frog-like spirit. That's what they are. An adder-faced Malach Rasha. Because that's all it is. They try to get you to go stop you on what you're doing. He said, why you don't want me to do this? Why are you trying to get me to stop? Why are you trying to get me to worship idols? Why are you trying to get me not to believe? It's clear as day. It says, by which you are driven from Amunah, faith, and belief in one Elohim. That's the only reason. They don't want you to believe there's one Elohim, Yahuwah, who governs and controls everything. They want you to believe that they do that. We control it all, and we govern it all. In actuality, there's only one Elohim, Yahuwah, who does all that. And his handiwork is clear as day to everybody, according to Romans chapter 1. Right? This is Nazarene, actually, the Shalakim advantage of knowledge. Right? Binah Mada'ah. So we must, above all things, hasten to the knowledge of the truth. Right? You gotta run. The name of Yahuwah is a strong tower. The righteous run and are safe. That as with a light kindled thereat, we may be able to dispel the darkness of errors. That's why we're seeing the sun coming back now. We went from the longest night now to the longest day. The darkness of errors, and now he said the darkness of errors that people had, even when you're in darkness, what happens? Your ayin, your 7 near, your eyes are open. Right? You can now dispel the darkness of errors. Why? By seeing in the dark. For ignorance, as we have said, is a great evil. It's evil. It's raw. Because you know what happens when you're ignorant? Nakash is, remember, he's more wiser and craftier than everybody. And there's a whole bunch of Nakashas out here. And guess what they do? They can deceive you, and it'd be a great gain to them, because you're going to come to them, you're going to give them all your money. You're going to give them all your time. You're going to waste 10 years, 7 years, 5 years. You're going to be upset, too, afterwards, after you wake up and your eyes open. You say, you do want that to happen to you? Because that will happen to me. You're going to find yourself, what just happened? And guess what happened? But because it has no substance, it is easily dispelled by those who are earnest. When you start getting full-fledged, when you start getting your wheels turning, and when you start moving fast, quick and powerful, sharper than any two-edged sword, like Hebrews chapter 4 said, discerning the intents in the heart and separating both soul from ruach and the joints and the marrow of your inner being, what happens to you? For ignorance has nothing. It says a great evil. For ignorance is nothing else, not knowing what is good. You don't know what's good. You don't know what's trustworthy words, just like the ascension of Yeshayahu said. Trustworthy words. He said there's many people out here speaking, but he said, are they trustworthy? Because Yahuwah don't trust nobody. Just like Job said. He said, I look at men of clay. Matter of fact, look at the Shamains. He said, even the Shamains weren't clean in my sight. He said, what less is man made of clay, of a diamond? Right? Yahuwah put no trust in nobody. But he says right here, that's why he tells us to trust him. It says, nothing else, not knowing what is good. Once know, this ignorance perishes, right? When your ignorance perishes, that means darkness has left your mind. That means your 7 near have come on, your 7 laps, and your lapid has now come on, your near, and now you can see in the dark. And guess what happened? And he said, how do you know? When one person speaks, he'd be like, man, that was real sharp what you just said. Man, I forgot all about that. That was real sharp what you just said. That's how you know your eyes open. He said, that was real sharp. You said something about things that are going on, and he said, boom, that's it right there. And that's real sharp. That's how you know your eyes become open. But when your eyes are not open, when you don't have nothing to say, when you got no debar, nothing there to put to season with whatever is being said. And it says right here, and no one can confer it except the Nabi Amath, right? The Nabi Yah of truth, right? Both male and female, right? For this is the gate of life. This is the gate. You know, there's 12 gates. 3 to the north, 3 to the south, 3 to the east, and 3 to the west. At the 4 corners of the garment, at the 4 corners of the altar. This is the gate of life. To those who enter in the road of good works, going to the city of salvation, good works, good deeds. Good deeds, your fruits. We always talk about being at the feet and being the servant. Those fruits, that's like 4 fruits right there. Those 4 good things you can do, and it'll automatically put you in a state of mindset to know what you got to do for all things. Just like when people serve animals and creatures of the earth. Right, this is Psalms 119, 9 through 16. Of course, you know that's the Ba'ith. That's the Bet. This is the 2nd month. And amazingly, we just going to use this. Psalms 119, we'll start here. And it means house, palace, right? Tent, tabernacle, mishkan, mikdash, sukkah, dwelling place. Verse 9 says, how can a young man keep his way pure? How can a young woman keep her way pure? By guarding it according to your debar, your word. With my whole heart, my whole mind, I seek you. People say, my whole mind, my whole heart, I seek you. Just like he says, awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Yahushua will shine on you. But how can he when you sleeping? I seek you, let me not wander from your commandments. Why? Because if you wander from your commandments, then you be prey for Satan. And then some people love being prey for Satan because it just gives them some attention. Because, I ain't getting no attention. So therefore, I'm going to go out here and be a prey for Satan and Satan all and let him just take over my body. Because I ain't getting no attention, so I'm going to go let Satan give me some attention. And this is how people get caught up, feeling sorry for themselves, and not even looking at why. And it says, right here, it says, I have stored up your Amurah in my heart. That is his word, his utterance, his voice. His voice is in his mind. Right? Amurah, that's what that word means. We put that there because it'll put I stored up your word, but that word, anytime you see word in the text, it doesn't always say the bar. Amurah in my heart, in my mind, that I might not sin against you, because that's the whole point. How you gonna keep yourself from sinning against somebody in your household? How you gonna keep yourself from sinning against your brother and your sister? How you gonna keep yourself from sinning against your companion and your friend and your neighbor? How you gonna do that? By storing up his Amurah in your heart. Barak are you, Yahuwah, teach me your statutes. With my lips I declare all your rules of your mouth. In the way of your testimonies I delight as much as in all riches. That's why he tells you, you know how people do, they look at their charts. Matter of fact, they look at the things they're going to probably gain. And yet, you know what it does? It put them to sleep in their mind. Just like Yahushua said, he said, the cares of this life and the deceit from the riches, they choke the bar out of your mind, and therefore you lose what you already attained. That's why the Ruach is not in a person, right? It says, in the way of your testimonies I delight in much riches. I will meditate on your precepts and fix my eyes on your ways, right? He says, fix my eyes on your ways. And I will delight in your statutes. I will not forget your debar, right? That's the whole point. Shaul said, lest you forget and you believe in vain. The words that I declared to you, Qahalath to you, lectured to you, he said, you forget what I said and you believe in vain. That's how you know you believe, when you don't forget it. Right, so that word for young man is na'ar, right? So we had na'ara for woman, female, right? We had for Esther, when they had he said young women, it says na'ara, right? It's na'ar for men, a boy, a lad, a servant, a young retainer, a servant. It also says a girl. Right, because it has the na'ar, when you had na'ar in there, and it says right here, a boy, a child, infancy, adolescence. So how is a little child going to make sure they don't do anything that is wrong? It also says a servant. That's why Yahushua said what? He said, the greatest among you shall be as the youngest, as a child, as a na'ar, and the leader as one who serves, as a child. He said, what do you mean as a child? A child is little. When you're walking with a child and it started crawling, it'll be back at your feet. It's at your knees. It don't ever rise up above that level. It's the very same thing when a person's like Nakash on the ground washing people's feet. Yahushua said, that's me. And then what you say, that ain't me. Right? I'm a grown up. Right? It says young people. Young men, young people. He said, I'm old. I'm like, man, how old are you? I only been here 7 jubilees, 8 jubilees. Man, you only like 0.05 years old in your sight. You ain't even been here a second. And then people say, they be acting like they've been here for 50 years. People like, dude, 150 years. Be like, man, you only been here like 0.05 seconds. That's all you're here for, right? Right. So this book, that word for pure, is how can a man keep his way pure? That word for pure is zakah, not tahor. It's zakah. It means to be clean, be pure, to make oneself clean. It also means to be translucent. He said, why would you say be translucent? To be innocent. Why? Because he said, be transferred around the renewing of your mind. Some people don't want to renew their mind. They believe they've attained all this knowledge. And he says, why? Because they believe that they made it. They already arrived. But it says right here, to be clean, pure. Right? Because you don't want to be clean in your own eyes. Right? That word for translucent means clear and pure, as in shining from within. He said, shining from within. You know how he talks about bodies terrestrial and bodies celestial? The celestial nature shines from within. And by that, you taking it to bar and not forgetting his Amurah in your heart and your mind, you storing it up, it allows you to be translucent. It allows your inner man to shine and be translucent. But it also means as transparent, says not transparent, but clear enough to allow light to pass through. Why? Because it allows light to come through it. It's just like these windows, just like a window you see, and you see light coming through it. Because it's translucent. Right? But most of the windows are transparent, but you need to have the forms with the frost on it, they have to be translucent. Why do windows have frost on it when the sun shines on it? To keep things hidden. To keep things hidden. That's why he said the word have I hid in my heart. Why? Because I can't allow people to see everything I got. It's just like a person who exposes himself in public, expose their body. It's the same thing. Why do you think he calls you a Bethula, a virgin? Why? Because you ain't supposed to be doing it. He said, even if somebody shine all the light on you, they shouldn't see nothing you got. Right? When the sun come out, he said they shouldn't be seeing everything you have. You should be translucent. Right? It says right here, verse 11 says, he says, I have stored up. That word for stored up is Saphon, Sod, Pa, and Nun. It means to hide, right? That's what you're supposed to be doing. Your body, you're supposed to be a hidden object. Treasure. It also means to store up. To store, to lie hidden. To protect. To hide. That's the whole point. To what? To be esteemed. This is how one's life has to be. And it says right here, to hoard or reserve. To hoard or reserve, right? So that word for, he says, I will meditate on your precepts and fix my eyes on your ways. That word for fix my eyes, they put fix my eyes, but it's really nabat. It means to look, regard, pay attention. That's what he means, pay attention. Because you got to pay. Attention means you got to pay, and you don't even have to pay for this. But they say pay so you can give attention to what I say. Right? But it means more like that. It says show up. It says to scan. Right? Just like your eyes, your 7 near, your 7 eyes, you're scanning. You know how he talks about he sent the Malachi to scan the earth? But it also means to have respect. That's what people don't do. He says have respect, and it also means to see. Why? Because when you have respect for the precepts of Yahuwah, he said, you got to be attentive. You got to pay attention. Because when you don't got respect for the precepts of Yahuwah, it's just like a woman or a son don't have respect for their father. That don't worship idols. When you're talking about, right? Why? Because you have respect and see. Why? It's like a person respecting their father speaking. Respect and see. See what? Behold and consider. You know what people say? Now I don't want, people say, now I see why he says honor your mother and your father. But then he also said, honor your mother and your father in the highest shny. He said, you only got one father. And then he says what? To look. Right? You do that with your eyes. Right? And he said the eyes, right? He says, I will not forget, because this is what everybody does. You're starting to forget. And it says, I will delight in your statutes. I will not forget. That word for forget is shakak. It means to forget, ignore. He said, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to ignore that. Cause to forget. It also means to mislay. It says to forget, forgotten. You forget, and you start to forget. It's like forgotten. Everything's forgotten, right? This is the book of Job, Aydah, chapter 31, 1 through 8. Job, Aydah, 31, 1 through 8. I have made a covenant with my iron. With my eyes. How then could I gaze at a Bethula? He said, I made a covenant with my eyes. He said, why am I going to look at a woman, a Bethula, a virgin? He said, why would he make a covenant with his eyes? What would be my portion from Elohim, Yahuwah, above my heritage from the Almighty on high, the Shadi? Is not calamity for the unrighteous? He's like, why would I? He said, I made a covenant. You know how we make these covenants? And say what we ain't going to do? We put Yahuwah's name on it, and then you do opposite. He said, I put Yahuwah's name on it. You made a covenant with your eyes in the name of Yahuwah. And then you say, Why would I gaze at a Bethula? Why would I gaze at a virgin when I already put a covenant on my eyes saying I will not gaze at a woman in that way, in no lustful intent? Or a man with a lustful intent, and you put Yahuwah's name on it, and then you do opposite. And it says right here, I is not calamity for the unrighteous and disaster for the workers of iniquity, because that's wrong. And then it says, does not he see my ways and number all my steps? Does he not see everything? Second Enoch already told you. So Hanuk said he can see all your thoughts. If I have walked with falsehood and my foot has hastened to deceit. He said, my foot, what hastened to deceit? That's why Satan on getting people's mind. Abunalek, Alpharus, Aktun, Akoros, Asmodeus, Alpharus, Aldi, Adal, Ataf, Batuk, Baran, Bakan. All these beings get in your heart. They can get in your heart. That's why people have legions within their heart. They say they manipulate your mind. And they can get in your heart and your mind. It doesn't matter how they get in. Zaphon. They can get in your heart. And he said, how do they get in there? Succubus and Ichabus. They can get in your heart and your mind. He said, why? Because they don't want to let you go. Why? Because they want to destroy you. And get what it says. Does not he see my ways and number my steps? If I have walked with falsehood and my foot has hastened to deceit, let me be weighed in just balance and let Elohim know my integrity. Why? Because you're trying to keep your integrity. He said, man, I made a covenant with my eyes. I said, how would I gaze at a Bethula, but then you do it? He said, there go your integrity. If my steps have turned aside from the way and my heart has gone after my eyes, because all that's in the world, the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. He said, if I've gone after my eyes, and if any spot has stuck to my hands, he said, spot. That's what we're supposed to present ourselves to Yahuwah without spot or wrinkle or any such thing. And it's stuck to your yard and your kaf, your hands. Then let me sow and another eat. Why? He said, I'm not going to eat. And let what grows for me be rooted out. Why? Because he said, let everything be stolen. Let all my food be taken. And let all the things I sow, let another person eat. Why? Because I ain't going to be eating nothing if I did this. You know why? Because my bread is going to be my ashes. And my tears is going to be my drink. He said, why would I do that? He said, why would I eat food when my integrity, when I done broke a covenant with Yahuwah that I had made to him? Why would I eat food and act like I'm all right and barak myself in my heart when one has done this and he say, oh, I made a covenant and then I ain't going to keep it? He said, why would I eat? Who cares about these things on earth? Who cares about my food and what grows in the ground that I eat? Who cares? Why? Because he said, you broke it. Because there's a point for this, right? It's a point for this whole thing, right? That word for covenant is berith. It means covenant, alliance, pledge between men, treaty, alliance, league, covenant, making. It says covenant keeping. It also means cutting. Why? When you make a berith, a covenant, and it's to cut things off, like I'm not going to look at a Bethula version. He says you cutting it off, which means it's a cutting, it's a covenant. It also means, it says because it's passing between pieces of flesh. Your flesh, your basar. It's a covenant. It's a covenant. He said, why do people he said, gaze away from Yahuwah? Why do you think they gaze away from Yahuwah's thought process and his ears and his understanding? He said they gaze away from anything he says. Because they're getting ready to walk in the path of darkness and evil cunning. They're getting ready to walk in the path of deceit. That's the only reason they're ignoring the bar, so they can walk in darkness and evil cunning. Because they got some evil plan. That's the only reason they won't listen to the bar in the Torah. Why? Because they, what? They're going to still pray to Yahuwah and still do it. He said they hide their ear from hearing the Torah, even their prayers an abomination. Why? Because that's what the adulterous woman did. She said, I paid my vows and I did all these things and I came out to meet you, which means that she heard the bar. but she was there, but she wasn't hearing it. And then she says, you know what? I did everything I was supposed to do. And matter of fact, here I am to meet you. That's what they do. He said they barak themselves in their heart. And guess what happens after that? Right, this is the book of Sirach, chapter 9 and 5. Gaze not on a maid. Right? Why do you think Ayub said that? Why do you think Ayub said that? He said, don't even do it. On a virgin, that thou fall not by those things that are precious in her. Why? Because what's precious in her? Her virginity. He said, you're going to fall. You know why? Because lust of the eyes and the pride of, you're going to look at that woman in lust. You're going to start be like Nakash in the garden. And then you're going to do some things just like Nakash did. Did he actually say that a man, that a woman, you got to be Bethula? Did he actually say, that you got to be married? Did he actually say that? And then you'll find yourself with a succubus spirit or Ichabus. But he said, don't. Why? He said, lest you fall. Why? Because you'll fall away. And guess what? You're going to get judgment for it. Like they say, judgment. He said, these should fall away to renew them to repentance again. He's like, man, you can't repent from that. Yahuwah is going to judge you. You're going to suffer loss. Matter of fact, you're going to still be saved. You're going to suffer some loss. Right? But it said right here, verse 8 and 5, it says, for those who live according to the flesh set their minds on things on the flesh. Why do you think Ayub said that? He said, I made a covenant with my eyes. Because I was in the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And he said, why do you think he says varith means cutting? It's a cutting. It says, set their things on the flesh. But those living according to the Ruach set their minds on things of the Ruach. Set their alay, their mind, because they hit the bar in their mind, their lab, their lay, and they with their whole heart. For to set the mind on the flesh is death. It's death. Because that's Satan loves his sin. Your sin is his comfort. He loves it. But to set the mind on the Ruach is life and shalom. It's life and peace. People talk about to be in the Ruach is life and peace. Why do you think you never find no peace in life in the flesh when you do things according to the flesh? He said when you get into things, he said arguments and fights and quarreling and fighting according to the flesh, works of the flesh. You're like, I have no peace, I have no love, I have none of this, right? And then people be screaming and putting all these things. I want positive thoughts and things of that sort. Why? Because you were walking according to the flesh. But then when you start walking according to the Ruach and your inner man, then you start to see life and peace. You're like, man, it's more peaceful this way. It's more peaceful life. That's where your peace at. It's inside of you. That's where your life is. Your shalom is inside. Your peace is in your inner man. So when you walk out here and you say you experience something in the flesh, you're walking according to the Ruach. So therefore you have no need, and you don't walk according to the flesh. Because if you do, you'll be minding things according to the flesh. Right, but it said right here, for the mind that is set on the flesh is hostile to Yahuwah Elohim. Why? Because you be hostile. You be fighting against him. You be fighting against the bar. You be fighting against his word. Why? Because you don't like it. Because you want to walk in the flesh. It's just like any other thing, right? It's just like being used in the world. When you're used in the world and people use and take advantage of you, and he's saying use you for profit and gain, and recognition and credibility and fame. And then you want what you desire, and then guess what happens? Because he said, I don't want to be involved, and guess what they do? They mock you, and they laugh at you. Why? Because you're minding things of the Ruach, because you understand that you don't want to be attached to things like that. And then guess what they do? They mock you, they laugh at you, and guess what happens? So for it does not submit to the Yahuwah's Torah law. They don't. Indeed, it cannot. Why? Because they're according to flesh. They're trying to get profit, gain, money, and recognition and fame, and be highly esteemed among men. Those who are of the flesh cannot please Yahuwah. Ain't no way they can. There's no way. Verse, you know how they say not of the flesh, they can't please Yahuwah. Why? Because when you cut your eyes off, and you say, I'm going to make a covenant with my eyes, it's a cutting. And you become Romans chapter 2, 25 through 29. For circumcision, that's what berith means. It means cutting. For circumcision indeed is of value if you obey the Torah. But if you break the Torah, your circumcision becomes uncircumcision. Why? Because some people say they're Yasharal, Yehuda, according to the flesh, but they're not circumcised in the flesh, which means they are liars. But then he says, so if a man who is uncircumcised keeps the precepts of the Torah, will not his uncircumcision be regarded as circumcision? Why? Because now he's circumcised in heart. He had an uncircumcised heart, and now he has a circumcised heart, which means he just cut off, he made a covenant. Just like Eve read a covenant with his eyes, he cut things off. That's what circumcision is, move. The removing. He moved it, right? Then he who is physically uncircumcised, right? Because you know how some people are physically uncircumcised, but keeps the law and the Torah will condemn you who have the written code in circumcision, but break the Torah, right? Because you circumcised in your flesh, and then you break it. But this person uncircumcised in their flesh, and they keep it, which means they're going to condemn you because you don't obey it. And you circumcised in the flesh, and you don't even obey it. But they keep it according to uncircumcision. But it says right here, for no one is a Yehudi who is merely one outwardly. That's what we glory in. He said the outer flesh, the outer man, what you put on, what you wear, how you look, your thoughts, your mind, all the things you did in your flesh, your accomplishments, the things that you want to attain in this life. No one is a Yehudi which is one outwardly, nor is circumcision outward and physical. Why? Why do you think he made a covenant with his eyes? His ayin, that is an unseen circumcision. It means cutting. He berith. Why do you think Aydah did that? It's an unseen circumcision. But a Yehudi is one inwardly. And circumcision is a matter of the heart. Why do you think he made a covenant? You can't see that. That's something you can't see inside of a man or a woman. You can't. The only way you're going to see if a person really was circumcised in heart is by their behavior. That's how you're going to know. I say, I can tell you've been circumcised in your heart in that area of your life, but then you have some other places in your life that you still won't circumcise all the way through. He said you won't cut it off all the way through. This is by the Ruach, that's why. Because you're doing it according to your flesh. He said you got to do it according to the Ruach. People say, how do you know you got the Ruach? Have you received the Ruach since you believe? Are you still walking according to the flesh? Because you're still walking according to the flesh. That's why you haven't received the Ruach, because you're still doing the works of the flesh. Lust of the eyes and the pride of life. He said you're still trying to attain it. That's why the Ruach departs from people. That's why people, when the Ruach depart from them, they try to stain you with gossip and slander and hatred and jealousy and envy and strife. They try to bring you in dissension and robberies and unessential minds and crude joking and laughter and jesting. They try to bring you into that stuff. You know why? Because they corrupt it. So they got to corrupt you. And you know why they do it? It's just like the demons on the YouTube and online. What do? The demons online do what? They slander you, they gossip about you, then they use Matthew chapter 18, I believe in 15, they say you must go tell your brother. Why? Because they'll do these things to try to draw you in. Then they say, oh, I was wrong, but come tell me my fault after being that I'm wrong. To try to draw you in, because the demon and the ego and the demon on the inside need to be fed with the actual egotistic mindset that it has. That's all it is. It's all about a crafty way. That's nakash. It's just like any other thing, because they started out with evil, and then they try to draw you with some good. Because it's the knowledge of good and evil. It's a crafty way of doing it. That's the same way this world is. Some truth, some evil, and then they bring you in, and then you be thinking it's the Ruach, and it's not. And that's how it works. Because it's a spiritual battle. They that are the flesh mind the things of the flesh, but they are the Ruach, the things of the Ruach. And then they'll turn on you, just like they did the man of Elohim when he came in the house. Don't eat no bread, and then they'll say, Didn't Yahusha tell you to forgive people? But not even knowing their whole mindset is all demonic in nature. That's how complex it gets when you start getting to a higher level of thought process. That's why he said, Qahalath ruach, because you got to be able to see these things. If you can't see it, then you're going to be in, how you say, taking a dog by its ears. Right? It's all important. Right? This is the book of Yehudiah, chapter 9, 1 through 14. Yehudiah fell upon her face and put ashes upon her head. Why she did that? She let her ashes be her bread and her tears her lakan. And what's she doing that for? And uncovered sackcloth wherein she was clothed. And about the time that the incense of the evening was offered in Jerusalem, what time the evening sacrifice is offered in Jerusalem? When the sun's going down, when it's going between the portals. It says, in the house of Yehudiah cried a lot with a loud voice and said, "O Yahuwah," right? She cried with loud cries and tears. Isn't that what Yahusha did? He learned obedience to the things he suffered. With loud cries and praying, with loud cries and tears. Isn't that what Asenath did? She was screaming in the house. She was screaming and praying in the house with ashes. And guess what she did? And guess what? And O Elohim of my father, it says, O Elohim, Yahuwah Elohim of my father Simeon. Because she was from the tribe of Simeon. Right? To whom thou gavest a sword to take vengeance of the strangers. Right? Because you supposed to be strangers what? Who loosed the girdle of a maid. Of a what? You know what happened? We know why they loosed the girdle of a maid. Because we made covenants with our eyes that we will not look at a maid. You know why? A virgin. Why? Because he said we cut that desire off. You know why? Because then he said you'll fall by what's precious to her. And you see what happened? It says, and you can read about it, but we don't do it today, but it says, loosen the girdle. We talked about it in the other parts of virginity, though. Who loosened the girdle of the maid to defile her. To defile her. That's what's going to happen to you. And you know what happens when you defile one of Yahusha's virgin? He said, woe unto you who caused one of my little ones to sin. It'd be better for, he said, it'd be better for you that a millstone be tied around your neck and you'd be cast in the depths of the sea and call one of these little ones who believe in me to sin. That's both male and female, son and daughter. He said, woe unto you. And discovered the thigh to her shame. He said, it discovered her thigh to her shame. And you know what happened after that? And polluted her virginity to her reproach. I have 10 virgins, 5 were wise and 5 were foolish. And you know what happens when you get reproached? It isn't her fault. And it says, for thou sayest, it shall not be so. And yet they did so. And then you know what people do today? They still do it today. In 2025 AD. Matter of fact, all the way from my whole lifetime. And he says, and it shall not be so, but they did so. Wherefore thou gavest their rulers to be slain. To do what? Thou gavest their rulers to be slain. So what do you think should happen to people who allow these things to happen? How do you think Yahushua going to judge people when they come back here? Because they say, it's okay. It's all right. It's we all have problems. Everybody does it. No, that's not how Yahushua going to judge. He said, wherefore thou gavest their rulers to be slain, so that they died. So that they died their bed in blood. Oh, now you see why Yahushua had to die. For you will not redeem with corruptible things, silver and gold, with the precious blood of Yahushua Mashiach. He said, any man sin, you have an advocate with Yahushua Mashiach. If he ain't died, we were all men most miserable, men and women. You think about your life, and when he said, when you lost your virginity or you lost your purity within your flesh. Now Yahushua, think about the people who defile you in the Ruach, who try to corrupt your spirit. And they'll do it. Being deceived, right? What happened? So they died their bed in blood, being deceived, and smote the servants with their masters, and the masters upon their thrones. And hast thou given their wives for a prey, and their daughters to be captives. Isn't that what happened to Yahshua? Isn't that what happened to Yasharal? Why do you think he started, the daughters of Zion walk with haughty and stretch forth necks and wanting eyes, mincing as they go? Because, why would they do that? Because all the men were slain in war. And they've now become the prey of Satan. That's how women become prey. By walking and mincing as they go, and walking and acting like they say, with a haughty mind, with a, want to be seen mind. And that's how you become prey. Because Satan can sense those behaviors. Oh, she's walking according to the flesh. I love flesh. Why do you think he's like a roaring lion? When you walk according to the Ruach, you're translucent. And it says, and their daughters to be captives, and all their spoils to be divided among thy dear children, which were moved with thy zeal. Right? And abhorred the pollution of their blood, and called upon thee for aid. O Yahuwah Ma'alahim, hear me, also a widow. She like, my man died too. She like, my man died too. For thou hast wrought not only those things, but also the things which fell out before, and which ensued after. Thou hast thought upon the things which are now, and which are to come. Guess what happened after that? It says, yea, what things thou didst determine were ready at hand, and said, lo, we are here. For all the ways are prepared, and thy judgments are in thy foreknowledge. For behold, the Assyrians are multiplied in their power. They are exalted with horse and man. They cabal in the strength of their footmen. They trust in shield and spear and bow and sling, and know not that thou art Elohim that breakest the battles. Yahuwah is thy name. Throw down their strength in thy power, and bring down their force in thy wrath. For they have proposed to defile the sanctuary. They're gonna do what? They're gonna defile the virgin. You know how it says? You know, the virgin. That's what Ba'ith means. This is the second day of the second month. It means, Ba'ith means sanctuary, a dwelling place. They coming to defile the sanctuary. They coming to pollute the virginity. And that's when it comes to your body. And this is how you know. When they start coming at you with footmen, shields, weapons, wars, like all these things, they start coming at you to get your virginity, to defile you. Right? They coming to rape you. Right? It says, and to pollute the tabernacle where thy glorious name rested, and to cast down with sword the horn of the altar. They coming to cast and defile your virginity, just like the strangers came to defile Dana with Simeon. When he came and he slew all the people. That's what they're coming to do. Why do you think they're all ganging up on you? He said, why would everybody gang up on a virgin? You know how when a woman, she a Bathula, and she walked through a place where people ain't made covenant with their eyes? Just like Sarah and Mizraim. And all the people in there saw her. They were looking at her legs, her thighs, everything. They were looking at her body in the Dead Sea Scrolls. He said, why did Sarah say, I'm gonna dress in modest apparel? Why? Because she understood I gotta put some stuff on, because I'm too beautiful to be walking out here knowing that I'm beautiful, uncovering myself. I gotta cover myself up. Why? Because it's gonna cause my husband might get killed. He might get taken out. He said that's another way that women protected their husband, right? Verse 9 says, behold their pride. And it says right here, where we at? Yeah. Verse 12 says, I pray thee, O Elohim, my Father and Elohim. Verse 12 says, where we at? We at 9? It said, behold their pride, and send thy wrath upon their head. Give into mine hand, which am a widow, the power that I have conceived. Smite by the deceit of my lips the servant with the prince, and the prince with the servant. Break down the statelessness by the hand of a woman. For For thy power standeth not in the multitude, nor thy might in the strong of men. For thou art an Elohim of the afflicted, a helper of the oppressed, an upholder of the weak. To this person would I look. Him who was a poor, ani, and contrite heart, nakah, depressed, oppressed, lame. He said, I'm going to look for that person who trembles at my debar. And guess what it says? That's the person you're going to look for. You know what it says? Upholder of the weak and protector of the forlorn, a savior of them that are without hope. Why? Because you're a needy person. I need him. I need Yahuwah, right? And it says, I pray thee, O Elohim of my father, Elohim of the inheritance of Yasharal, master of Shamains and earth, creator of the waters, king of every creature, hear thou my prayer. Now you see how you got to talk. He said, why we start off with all that stuff? There's a reason why we start off with all that stuff. Because you have to know how to talk. All master of the Shamains and the earth, creator of the waters, the rivers and the streams, and the lakes and the yam, king of every creature, in the beginning, hear thou my prayer. And make my speech and deceit to be their wound and stripe, who have purposed cruel things against thy covenant, and thy hallowed house, and against the top of Saum, and against the house of the possession of thy children, and make every nation and tribe acknowledge that thou art Elohim of all power and might, and that there is none other that protected the people of Yasharal but thou. You know what people do? They go seek the protection of other people in your hand, right? Right, because the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. But it's a reason why we're reading through all this, right? This is the book of Judah, chapter 10, verse 1. Yehudia, chapter 10, verse 1. Now after she had ceased to cry unto Elohim of Yasharal, a bad maid an end of all these words. Let me change it. And she rose where she had fallen down and called her maid, her other virgin, and went, or her maid, or her servant, and went down into the house in which she abode in the Shabath days and in her feast days. Why? And it says, and pulled off the sackcloth which she had on, and put off the garment of her widowhood, and washed her body all over with water, and anointed herself with precious ointment, and braided the hair of her head, and put on a tire upon it. She tied it, and put on her garments of gladness, wherewith she was clad during the life of Manasseh, her husband. Manasseh's her husband. Why? Because she was married. And she put on the clothes of her gladness. When the Asenath did, she was in sackcloth and ashes at one point, and then she put on the clothes of her gladness and put on her beauty and came to see Yusuf. Or presented herself to Yahusha. The same thing. She went from sackcloth and ashes to putting on her clothes of gladness, her joy clothes, that's her fruits of the Ruach. After you went from sorrow to life, and then you know what she did. Now she's getting ready to do something. So that's how you got to present yourself. He said, even in your afflictions, walk. Even in your losses, walk. Verse 4 says, and she took sandals upon her, she took sandals on her regard her feet, and put about her bracelets and her chains and her rings and her earrings and all her ornaments, and decked herself bravely to allure the eyes of all men that should see her. Why? To do what? To allure the eyes of all that see her. Isn't that what she prayed? In verse 5 says, then she gave her maid a bottle of wine, a cruse of oil, and filled a bag with parched corn and lumps of figs, and with fine bread. Oh, there it is. And what? In fine bread. Lacan. You know what she got? She got oil. That's cogmasa. We passed it, but still. Cogmasa, wine, cogmasa, corn, lumps of figs. These are all fruits, and then lacan, right? So she folded all these things together and laid them upon her. She folded. thus went forth to the gate of the city of Bethulia, and found standing there Ozias and the ancients of the city, and Carbis and Carmis. And when they saw her, that her countenance was altered, and her apparel was changed, they wondered at her beauty very greatly, and said unto her, they saw how beautiful she was, and they wondered at it. He said, why are you so beautiful and getting ready? Where you going looking that beautiful? Right? And guess what it says? And they said to her, the Elohim our fathers give thee favor and accomplish thine enterprises to the Kabbalah of the children of Yasharal and to the exaltation of Jerusalem. That's the whole point. If you're going to look that beautiful and you got all that stuff on, you must be trying to advance Yasharal in Jerusalem. Because you're supposed to present yourself in the world a certain way. Because you're an ambassador, right? So if you're an ambassador, you have to present yourself. You can't look like any other thing out here. Any other thing, right? And get what it says. Then they worship Yahuwah. He said, how you gonna get people to see your God, Elohim? He said, and she said unto them, command the gates of the city to be opened unto me, that I may go forth to accomplish the things whereof you have spoken with me. She's like, I need to accomplish what you said. That's the only way this thing gonna happen. So they commanded the young men to open unto her as she had spoken. And when they had done so, Yehudia went out, she and her maid with her, and the men of the city looked after her until she was gone down the mountain. The where? Gone down the mountain. Until she had passed the valley and could see her no more, until she went outside of their vision. Right? She went from a three-dimensional shape to four-dimensional. That's when you can't see it no more. And then it says right here, verse 11 says, thus they went straight forth into the valley, and the first watch of the Assyrians met her. You know the first watch. That's the first watch of the day. You know, when the sun rises, you get dressed, and you leave. That's the first watch of the day. You know how. And we get into the first watch, fourth watch, fifth watch, sixth watch, right? And it says right here. It says, and took her and asked her, of what people art thou? And whence comest thou? And whence goest thou? And she said, I am a woman of the Abri, and am fled from them, for they shall be given you to be consumed. Now she told them, I'm going to accomplish your enterprises. And then she said, I fled from the Abri when they let her out the gate. And then what happened after that? And I am coming before Hopheres, the chief captain of your army, to declare words of truth, and will show him a way whereby he shall go and win all the hill country without losing the body or life of any one of his men. So she's like, I'm coming to help you. I'm coming to help you. But you see her, she prayed to Yahuwah, and then she went out with craftiness at the same time. She got out the gate, she prayed to Yahuwah, got out sackcloth and ashes. She was a widow, put on her beautiful clothes. Then she said, I'm going to accomplish the enterprises of Jerusalem. And then she gets to the Assyrians, and then she said, I fled from Jerusalem, which means she practiced deceit and lied. And then, now she's at the gate. Now she dressed and she looks just like, she looks beautiful as she should, but she's doing other things in her speech and her conversation, just like Nakash in the garden, to accomplish something for a carnal way. You know, something carnal. Right? Just like any other carnal thing you try to do. But is it the selfish ambition, right? And it says, for they shall be given you to be consumed, and I am coming before Hopheres, the chief captain of your army, to declare the words of truth, and I will show him a way, whereby he shall go and win all the hill country without losing the body or life of men, one of his men. Now when the men heard her words and beheld her countenance, they wondered greatly at her beauty and said unto her, Thou hast saved thy life. He said, what? In that thou hasted to come down to the presence of our master. Right. If she didn't have no beauty on, if she didn't have no gifts, no beauty, he said, you saved your life by doing that. And you came down hastily. Now, therefore, come to his tent. And some of us shall conduct thee until they have delivered thee into his hand. Deliver thee to his hands, right? They're going to follow you, right? They're going to make sure you get there. Because you're so beautiful, you may not get to the tent. Verse 16, and when thou standest before him, be not afraid in thy heart, but show unto him according to thy word, and he will entreat thee well. Then, because you can't present yourself to the king any type of way, or the ruler any type of way. You can't present yourself to Yahusha any type of way. Of course, it's about the Assyrians, but still. And then it says, verse 17, and then they chose of them 100 men to accompany her and her maid, and they brought her to the tent of Hophni. That's how beautiful she was. They had to literally have 100 people to escort her to the tent. And then all these men, you think they weren't looking at her? And guess what? He said, man, shoot, I'll escort her. Everybody wanted to escort her after that. They seen her. But guess what happens after that? Verse 18, then was there a concourse throughout all the camp, for her coming was noised among the tents. Why? But you know how you go into a prison and a woman walk through? And you walking through and they see a beautiful woman, what do? They go crazy, right? Or you see one beautiful woman and you go into a midst of a congregation of all men. What do you think gonna happen? Or you see a beautiful woman walking down the street and there's a whole bunch of men standing there. They're gonna be talking. Hey you, what's going on? Who you with? Who you from? Where you from? They're gonna be talking about you. Why? For her coming was noise among the tents, and they came about her as she stood without the tent of Hophni till they told him of her. They were following her around and saying all types of things in the midst of all those men. Out of their mouth. And you go by your life today, and has this ever happened to you? And you looking beautiful, and then guess what happened? People just start saying things about you, what they want to do, and how they want to do it. Just like Yusuf, when he came into the camp of the Mizraim women, they were taught all of them wanted to molest you. All of them wanted to have intercourse, fornication, and adultery. And as soon as he walked in, everybody wants to do that. It's the same thing. And it says right here, it says, and they wondered at her beauty and admired the children of Yasharal because of her. So how are you going to admire Yahushua Mashiach and the people of Yasharal and how they're supposed to be in the earth, and that the way of truth don't be evil spoken of if you don't look and conduct yourself like this? And it says, and everyone said to his neighbor, who would despise this people? Why? Because now, he said, who would despise this people that have among them such women? He said that. Now you see why. He said, now you see why we're despised. But there's a reason why. Like some people look beautiful on the outside. It says, surely it is not good that one man of them be left, who being let go might deceive the whole earth. Say what? He said, surely it is not good that one man of them be left, who being let go might deceive the whole earth. Why? Because he's like, just one woman like this? So you telling me all y'all women like this? He said, man, we got to kill all these men. We got to take them all out. These people will deceive the whole earth with these type women. How beautiful they are. Amazingly. You know what you see today? He said they'll deceive the whole earth. And you'd be like, why are they recruiting beautiful people? Because they're going to deceive the whole world. Why do you think he's talking about children of Yasharal? They'll deceive the whole world with these type women, with the women they got. They'll make the whole world think that they something and they not. And here's what it says. Verse 20. And it says, and they that laid her to Hophnies went out, and all his servants, and they brought her into the tent. Now Hophnies rested upon his bed upon a canopy, which was woven with purple and gold and emeralds and precious stones. So they showed him of her, and he came out before his tent in silver lamps going before him. And when Yehudiah was come before him and his servants, they all marveled at her beauty, the beauty of her and her countenance. And she fell down upon her face and did reverence unto him, and his servants took her up. Right, verses Sirach 36:22. The beauty of a woman cheers the countenance, and a man loveth nothing better. That's what you just saw here. Right? The beauty of a woman got her to go through a whole camp of an army of killers. She ended up getting to meet the king. Matter of fact, got so close to him, she in his tent. And that's what they do today. That's why high ups and people, they do that. They use a woman to get close to you. But this right here, you can see right here, the beauty of a woman cheers the countenance, and man loveth nothing better. Right? He said, man, they'll deceive the whole world. Right? This is the book of Sirach 18:15-28. My son, blemish not thy good deeds. Neither use uncomfortable words when thou givest anything. Why? Because you end up, my son and daughter, blemish not your good deeds. Neither use uncomfortable words when thou givest anything. Shall not the dew assuage the heat? Right? So just like you see the dew come up in the morning and it disappears when the heat comes, so is a word better than a gift. So is a word, the bar, better than a gift. That's why you store it up in your heart and your mind. He said it's better than giving somebody a gift. He said that's the best gift you can give. For the wages of sin is death. But the gift of Yahuwah is eternal life through Yahushua Mashiach. He said the word is better than, he said that's the gift. Lo, is not a word better than a gift? But both are with a gracious man. He said, I'll give you the bar. He said, I'll give you the bar and I'll give you a gift. Why do you think Yahushua came? He was the gift and the word. A fool will upbraid churlishly, and a gift of the envious consumeth the what? Consumeth the eyes. It make you go blind. Your 7 eyes and your 7 ears go out. He said, you envious and you giving a gift? Why do you think Yusuf was rejecting those people gifts? When they were trying to, all the Mizraim were giving them gifts and he was sending them back with threats. And it says, learn before thou speak, and use physic of ever thou be sick. What is physic? Physic is an older word for medicine, a practice of medicine. Use medicine when you're sick. But he said, learn before you speak. Verse 20 says, before judgment examine thyself, and in the day of visitation thou shalt find mercy, right? Verse 21 says, humble thyself before thou be sick, and in the time of sins show thyself repentance. Show repentance. We want to get to it. Last couple. It says, let nothing hinder thee to pay thy vow in due time, and defer not until death to be satisfied. Before thou prayest, prepare thyself. And be not as one that tempteth Yahuwah. Why do you think she came with ashes and things? She was in a certain state of mind. She preparing herself. He said, you don't call on Yahuwah when you need some help. In a state where you actually think that you're actually deserving of it. But it said right here, think upon the wrath that shall be at the end, and in the time of vengeance when he shall turn away his face. When thou hast enough, remember the time of hunger. And when thou art rich, think upon poverty and need. From the morning until evening, the time is changed, and all things are soon done before Yahuwah. For this is what I want. Verse 27. A wise man will fear in everything. He's like, a wise man or woman will fear in everything. And guess what happens? And in the day of sinning, he will beware of offense. but a foot will not observe a time. But a fool will not observe a time. And that's what you see with Judith. When she came in, she was praying, and then she was calling and saying all the sins that the strangers did. And then she asked Yahuwah for something. And guess what? But the fools that let her in the camp, they couldn't even observe what time it was. They couldn't even do it. And then what it says, every man of understanding knoweth wisdom. Right? They couldn't even, it's a hot. Every man of understanding be not, but understands wisdom. They won't be talking about wisdom. A woman ain't going to be talking about no hakma. And will give praise unto him that found her. They said, and they will give praise to the person who found it. But you know what they're going to do now? They treat wisdom wickedly and evil. They treat hakma evil. That's what they do. That's what they do. They despise it. And there's a reason why. Let's see what happens with her. This is the book of Judith, chapter 11, verse 1. Then said Hophni unto her, Woman, be of good comfort. Fear not in thy heart, for I never heard any that was willing to serve Nebuchadnezzar, the king of all the earth. So you think about Yahusha, who's the king of all the earth? Yahuwah and Yahusha. He the king of all the earth. And he said, I will never hurt one who's willing to what? Serve Yahusha, Mashiach, and Yahuwah. He said, I will never do that. But he said, you know what people do today? Both male and female? He said, you just do it. That's why Yahushua said, woe unto you who cause one of your little ones to believe in me to sin. It'd be better that a millstone be tied around your neck, you'd be cast in the sea. This is the sea. Amazingly, this person is a servant to Nebuchadnezzar. And he said, I'm a servant to Nebuchadnezzar. And you're supposed to be a servant to Yahuwah and Yahushua Mashiach. And then you hurt people who are servants to him. He said, you take advantage of people who are servants to him. You slander and gossip about those who you use them for merchandise and money and fame and force. And he said, use and destroy their name, but then you use them for your own personal gain. Verse 2 says, Now therefore, if thy people that dwelleth in the mountains had not set light by me, I would not have lifted up my spear against them. But they have done these things to themselves. But now tell me, wherefore thou art fled from them, and art come unto us? For thou art come for a safeguard. Be of good comfort. Be of good comfort. Thou shalt live this night and hereafter. For none shall hurt thee, but entreat thee well, as they do the servants of King Nebuchadnezzar my master. Then Yehudiah said unto him, Receive the words of thy servant, and suffer thine handmaid to speak in thy presence, and I will declare no lie to my master this night. He said, I ain't going to declare no lie to my master this night. This night. Why? Because remember, she left in the first watch. When the first watch started? When the sun goes down at Aydah. What was the Yark? Gadol Ma'or. The Yark can rule by night. Is it not? The sun rules by day, the Shamash rules by day, and the Yark rules by night. She in the night watch. How you say Aydah? And her eye, it talks about a virtuous woman, Kaya woman, her lamp don't go out at night. Let's see what happens. And if thou will follow the words of thy handmaid, Yahuwah will bring the thing perfectly to pass by thee, and my master shall not fail of his purpose. And as Nebuchadnezzar, king of all the earth, liveth, and as his power liveth, who has sent thee for the upholding of every living thing, for not only men shall serve him by thee, but also the beasts of the field, and the cattle, and the fowls of the air shall live by the power under Nebuchadnezzar and all his house. So he thinks he's Adam. Like Adam. Didn't Adam, he said, let us make Adam in our own image and likeness. Let him have authority of the fish, the sea, fowl, every creeping thing, and over all the earth. You know what Adam did? He gave it to Adam. Both male and female. But it said right here. And it says, For we have heard of thy hakmah and thy policies, and it is reported in all the earth, that thou only art excellent in all the kingdom, and mighty in knowledge, and wonderful in feats of war. Right? All this is Yehudiah saying to him, right? It says, now as concerning the matter which Achior did speak in thy council, we have heard his words, for the men of Bethulia saved him, and he declared unto them all that he has spoken to thee. Therefore Yahuwah and governor respect not his words. Therefore master and governor respect not his words, but lay it up in thine heart, for it is true, for our nation shall not be punished, neither can sword prevail against them, except they sin against their Elohim. That's the only reason. He said that's the only way they can prevail, unless we sin against Yahuwah Elohim. He said, how do you think they're going to succeed on us? He said, if your household is transgressing the word, why do you think all these things are going to succeed on you if you don't stop? Why do you think all these things come at you? Because you ain't going to stop sinning against Yahuwah Elohim. That's why the sword comes and it devours you and destroys you. And now that my master be not defeated and frustrate his purpose, even death is now fallen upon them, and their sin has overtaken them. Now he's like, look, the sin has now overtaken us because you kept going against Yahuwah Elohim, wherewith they will provoke their Elohim to anger whensoever they shall do that which is not fit to be done. It's not fit. It's not, how you say, conducive. And that's what happens. Because it's not fit to be done. Verse 12 says, for their victuals fail them, and all their water is scant. And they have determined to lay hands upon their cattle and purpose to consume all things. Say what? Of want of everything, they ain't got nothing left. And get what it says? That Elohim have forbidden them to eat by his laws. They're going to lay hands upon their cattle and propose to consume all things that Elohim has forbidden to eat by his laws, and are reserved to spend the first fruits of the tenth of wine and oil, which they had sanctified and reserved for the priests that serve in Jerusalem before the face of our Elohim, that which things is not lawful for any one of the people so much as to touch with their hands. He said, you're not even allowed to touch it. For they have sent some of Jerusalem, right? They weren't even supposed to touch it with their hands, right? Keep that in mind. It says they what? A tenth of the oil, and they weren't supposed to touch it with their hands. For they have sent some to Jerusalem, because they also that dwell there have done the like to bring them a license from the Senate. Now when they shall bring them word, they will forthwith do it, and they shall also be given to thee to be destroyed the same day. Wherefore thine handmaid, knowing all this, and fled from their presence. And Elohim, Yahuwah, has sent me to work things with thee, whereat all earth shall be astonished, and whosoever shall hear. It says, for thy servant is a religious, and serveth Elohim of Shamayim day and night. Now therefore, my Elohim, I will remain my master. Therefore, my master, I will remain with thee, and thy servants will go out by night into the valley, right? Because they're at right now. This is a night watch. Your lamp is supposed to go out by night. It's a night watch. And I will pray unto Yahuwah, and he will tell me when they have committed their sins. He's like, they're going to tell me. I'm going to pray to Yahuwah. He's going to tell me when they committed their sins. And I will lead thee through the midst of Judea, Yehudah, until thou come before Jerusalem. And I will set thy throne in the midst thereof. And thou shalt drive them as sheep that have no shepherd. Why do you think they smoked Yahusha? They took Yahusha and he said, smite the shepherd and the sheep gonna scatter. It says, and a dog shall not so as much open their mouth at thee. For these things were told me according to my foreknowledge, and they were declared unto me, and I am sent to tell thee. Right now she in the garden, in the Nakash, but she on the stranger as a Nakash. And here she is setting a stumbling block for the stranger, using her beauty as the persuader, but not knowing all these things take place. Why? Because they're getting ready to destroy them. And here she is as a representation, supposed to be an ambassador. Think about ambassadors for Yahushua Mashiach. And then you set a stumbling block for a stranger. And they should be killed. And people say, yeah, you can do that. Let's see. And it says, and I will lead thee through the midst of Judea until thou come before Jerusalem, and I will set thy throne in the midst thereof, and thou shalt drive them as sheep that have no shepherd. And a dog shall not so much as open his mouth at thee. For these things were told me according to my foreknowledge, and they were declared unto me, and I am sent to tell thee. Then her words pleased Holofernes, and all his servants, and they marvel at her wisdom. Oh, so now she's beautiful and she got Hukmah. She got wisdom, and said, because isn't that what call you a woman? Out of her mouth come wisdom. But it says right here, and said, there is no such woman from one end of the earth to the other, both of beauty of face and wisdom of words. He said, there ain't nobody like you. He said, so what they saying about you? Likewise, Hophanes said unto her, Yahuwah have done well to thee, well to send thee before thy people. He said, Yahuwah, that strength might be in our hands, and destruction upon them that lightly regard my master. And get what happened? And now thou art both beautiful in thy countenance and witty in thy words. You wise and you beautiful. But guess what? Surely if thou do as thou hast spoken, thy Elohim shall be my Elohim. They're like, if you're going to give us into their hand and you're going to help us defeat them and take the hill country and give us all the things they have, and you set them up and you allow them to be taken down and you bring them to us, your Elohim be our Elohim. It ain't like the Abri in the fiery furnace who had to stand with Amunah, right? She using a whole nother different way. And thou shalt dwell in the house. It says, dwell in the house of King Nebuchadnezzar. That sound like some people from these TV shows. They be setting kings and rulers up, and then they say, put me in the office right next to you. That sounds just like, right, through craftiness, right? Doing all the evil stuff to set you up, take you down, just so they can be right next to you. And they do that stuff. This is politics, right? This is political. This is a political movement. And shall be renowned through the whole earth. He's like, and your name, you're going to be sitting next to the king, and your name going to be renowned through the whole earth. Everybody going to know who you are. But that's the same way when it comes to Yahushua Mashiach and Yahuwah. How are people supposed to know who you are? Not through this crafty way. I ain't talking about this crafty. I'm talking about in a righteous manner, not setting stumbling blocks, not doing it for advancement of yourself and things of that sort. Remember, she said she's going to advance Jerusalem, but she was talking about getting revenge on her enemies that came and that were destroying her people. But in actuality, he said, vengeance is mine, Yahuwah. He said, I will repay. Not taking it into your own hand. This is why Yahushua was so hated. Because he made people restrain themselves from doing certain things and certain practices. That's why when you see this Bethula, she looked like a Bethula. She looked like somebody that was innocent. But in actuality, she really isn't. Right? So this book of Matthew 21, 28 through 43. What do you think? A man had 2 sons, and he went to the first and said, son, go and work in the vineyard today. Isn't that what she was doing? Because she left right at evening time. She working in the vineyard, night watch. That's what a woman's supposed to do. And he answered, I will not. But afterward, he changed his mind and went. He said, I'm not going to do it. He said, I changed my mind. And he went to the other son and said to the same. And he answered, I go, sir, but did not go. Which of the 2 did the will of his father? They said the first. The one to say, I ain't doing that. Man, I don't want to do that. He said, you have those moments. No, I'm not doing that. He said, the one who did, he said the first one. Yahushua said to him, truly I said to you, the tax collector and the prostitutes go in the kingdom of Yahuwah before you. He like, hold up. So you look at that woman in there deceiving people, and she out there working. But she like, Yahuwah like, you doing all that, crafting it and taking it in your own hand? He said, them people gonna get in the kingdom. Remember how he said, your Elohim be my Elohim. He said, they'll get in the kingdom before you do. That woman thought she was doing something, but naturally, Yahuwah like, them people like, man, your Elohim be my Elohim. He's like, they'll get in the kingdom before you do. But it said right here, and Yahuwah said, for Yahuwah came to you in the way of righteousness, right? And you did not believe him, but the tax collectors and the prostitutes believed him. He said, I ain't going. He said, I'm gonna go. He said, the first person gonna get it, because he went. Yuna, he didn't want to go at first. He said, I ain't going, and he went anyway. He still went afterwards though. He said, who gonna get in the key? He said, so who's the one that did well? He said, the first person, because he didn't want to do it. And he said, nah, he gonna do it now. And get what he says. And even when you saw it, you did not afterwards change your minds and believe him. He said, when you saw the tax collectors and the prostitutes believing, he said, you didn't even change your mind. You saw how the king Nebuchadnezzar's servant, he like, man, I'm gonna change my mind about this thing. Your Elohim gonna be my Elohim. They believed it, but the children of Yasharal up in the mountains sinning and transgressing the bar. And he said, you ain't even believing they weren't even believing and doing what he said. And all them sins, all the wars was coming upon him. But then you see the prostitute, you see the officials and everybody like, your Elohim gonna be my Elohim. And everybody gonna know who you are. Verse 33, here another parable. There was a master of a house who planted a vineyard and put a fence around it and dug a wine press in it and built a tower and leased it to tenants. And went into another country, right? So he built a vineyard. He planted. He made a rental property. You know how people make rental properties. And guess what happened? And when the season of the fruit drew near, that's what we're in now. He sent his servants to the tenants to get his fruit. And the tenants took his servants and beat one. He said, that's my fruit. And beat one. The tenants took his servants and beat one. They were sent out to gather the fruit. They come and do the work. They killed another person for no reason at all. And then the other one, and they stoned somebody else. But people ain't even do it. He's like, I came out here to get fruit, and you out here trying to take me out. You know what it says? Again, he sent other servants more than the first. And they did the same to them. Finally, he sent his son. He said, I'm going to send my son. Saying, they will respect my son. They're going to respect my precepts. You know how it talks about respect. I haven't forgotten your ways. But when the tenants saw the son, they said to themselves, this is the heir. Come, let us kill him and have his inheritance. And they took him and threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. That's what they do. You get in the vineyard, you start working. He's like, they killed the man in the vineyard. They threw me out the vineyard. He said, they threw me out the vineyard. You ain't working in here, right? They threw him out. And guess what happened? And when therefore the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tenants? They said to him, he will put those wretches to a miserable death, and let out the vineyard to other tenants who will give him the fruits in their season. Why do you think he was saying, why do you think the king of Assyria was like, your Elohim be our Elohim? If you allow this to happen, you gonna give us your Elohim be our Elohim. And he said, Yahushua said to them, have you ever read the scriptures? The stone which the builders rejected became the cornerstone. This is Yahuwah's doing, and marvelous in your eyes. He said, they rejected me. You know what happens after that? Therefore I tell you, the kingdom of Yahuwah will be taken away from you. What do you think the king of Assyria was getting ready to do? Taken away from you and given to a people producing its fruits. Kindness, I have joy, peace, patience, meekness, temperance, and moon, faithfulness and self-control. Gentleness and self-control. And get what happened? And the one who falls on this stone will be broken to pieces. And when it falls on anyone, it will crush him. He said, this stone's so heavy, that's how heavy it is. Right? But that's the whole point to that. This Matthew 6:16. When you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites. For they disfigure their faces, that their fasting may be seen by others. Remember, this woman was in sackcloth and ashes. She ain't eat no food. When she woke up that night, what did she do? She went right out, and she put the food on her sack and walked. She didn't eat none of that food. She was bringing it to the king, and she didn't eat no food that whole night. That whole day, all the time she was fasting, in sackcloth and ashes. And guess what happened after that? They disfigured their faces that their fasting may be seen by others. When she was still fasting, when she left Jerusalem, did she have her face all gloomy, looking crazy, like she ain't got nothing, like she ain't got no sense? No, she did some things. Truly I said to you, they have received a reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face. Isn't that what she did? She put water on. She cleaned her body. She oiled her face. She put all the beauty on and put her sashes on, put all the things that she had on. She looked so beautiful in her countenance, in her outer man. That what? That your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. Where's he at? Inside of you. Because they out of the flesh, mind the things of the flesh. They out of the ruach, things of the ruach. He's on the inside of you. That's where he at. He in secret. Because it's translucent. They ain't supposed to see him. You hid him in your heart. It was all for a reason. Why do you think he had Yehudi of going there? Even though it's his will. But it was Yahuwah talking to them. The whole time. He was setting them up. Just like all y'all who did with the men who came to his house. And they were saying they were surrounding the house. And the young man said, what are we going to do? He said, open his eyes, Yahuwah. He said, man, it'd be more with us than to be with them. It's the same thing. Because that's what happens when you start fasting. He said, who is that talking? That's what happens when you start to operate like Yahushua Mashiach. Who is that talking? He said, and your Father who sees you in secret will reward you. He said, I see you. Where he going to see you at? With his 7 eyes. This is Old Solomon, ODE 35, 1-7. The sprinkling of Yahuwah overshadowed me with serenity and caused his cloud of peace to stand over my head, that it might guard me at all times and became my salvation to me. Why? Because when you walking through that camp, when she was walking through that camp, think about all those men there, everybody was around her. He said a cloud of serenity surrounded her. And guess what happened? Everyone was disturbed and afraid, and there flowed from them smoke and judgment. And guess what happened? But I was tranquil in Yahuwah's legion. More than the shade was he to me, and more than foundation. And I was carried like a child by his mother, and he gave me milk in the dew of Shamayim. And I grew strong in his favor, and rested in his perfection. Just like you know what happened? And I extended my hands in the ascent of myself, and I directed myself near the Most High Yahuwah, and I was saved near him. What happened? He said, your beauty has saved your life. Isn't that what the king said? The servant said to King Nebuchadnezzar? And when the soldiers came in, he said, your beauty, your countenance has saved you. You came hastily to tell us this. And guess what happened? This is Proverbs 3:19-26. Yahuwah by wisdom founded the earth, and by understanding established the Shemaims. By his knowledge, the deeps broke open, and the clouds dropped down dew. Isn't that what she was praying? When she was in sackcloth and ashes. My son, Adam, do not lose sight of these. Keep sound wisdom and discretion. Isn't that what they said was in her mouth? They said, you're beautiful in countenance, and you got wise words. There's nobody on earth more beautiful than you. You inwardly and outwardly, right? So they thought. And they will be a life for your soul and adornment to your neck. Then you will walk in your way securely, and your foot will not stumble. If you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Do not be afraid of sudden terror and the ruin of the wicked when it comes. For Yahuwah will be your confidence. It will not suffer your foot to be caught. He said it will not suffer your foot to be caught, right? Right, so reading through this. Matthew 25:25. The kingdom of heaven is like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. When you going to meet the bridegroom at? And you got your lamp on, you're near. At night. At night. Why do you think when she left the camp, she left Jerusalem in the first watch? She got her first watch, and it was nighttime. And what happened? What happened? She was going to meet somebody. And she was decked out. And guess what happened? Five of them were, it said went out and meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. You know what they said she was? For when the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them. Didn't she take oil with her when she left? She had put it in a bag with her other virgin. Didn't she put oil in there and bread? Didn't she? She took oil with them. She was very wise. And it says, but the wise he took no oil with them, but the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. Isn't that what she did? And as the bridegroom was delayed, they became drowsy and slept. You know what she said? I'm gonna stay here all night with you. But at midnight there was a cry. Here is the bridegroom. Come out to meet him. Then all those virgins rose and trimmed their near. And the foolish said to the wise, give us some of your oil, for our lamps and manure are going out. But the wise answered, saying, since there is not enough for us and for you, go rather to the dealers and buy for yourselves. And while they were going to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went into him with him, into the marriage feast, and the doors were shut. Afterwards the virgins came also, saying, Yahuwah, Master, open to us. But he answered, truly I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you do not know neither the day nor hour. Right? You don't even know. You don't even know. This is 3 John, Shalishi Yehukanan 3:2. Right? Beloved, I pray that all may go well with you, and that you may be of good health, even as well with your soul. So, just like you have good health within yourself. Why would he say that? Because we just read in the Sukkah Sarah, he said, when you're sick, use medicine. He said, when you're sick, he said, when you're sick or when you sin, show repentance. Because even as well as your soul, because your soul, we're talking about flesh and ruach. Because your flesh cannot be in good health sometimes. But then he says, as well as your soul. You have health of a natural man, you have health of a soul, nefesh. You got health to maintain, both flesh and ruach. And that health of the ruach is maintained through the things that you see that allows the countenance to shine as the day, as the dawn. It allows your beauty to radiate. Just like as the bride of Mashiach, both Yashar and Yehuda, one has to be in a certain way, in a certain fashion, right? This is Bereshit, chapter 1, 26 through 27. Then Yahuwah Elohim said, let us make Adam in our image, Salim, and after our Jamuz, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the Shamayim, over the livestock, and over all the earth, and every creepy thing on the earth. Isn't that what they said about Nebuchadnezzar? Isn't that what she said? And go, it says, so Yahuwah created Adam in his own image. In the image of Yahuwah, he created him. Male, Zakar, and female, Nakabah, he created them. He created them in his image and likeness. Because we know that word Salim is what? Images, likeness, resemblance, a shade, a phantom, like something translucent. Illusion, it allows light to pass through. Resemblance, figure, an image. Right? When you look at a phantom, it's a ghost, a figment or of the imagination, what you think, how you think in your mind, your thoughts, what you meditate on. That's why he said, the bar I've hid in my heart, in my mind, that I might not sin against you. Right? So they said, then Yahuwah said, let us make Adam in our Salim and after our likeness Damuth. Right? That Damuth is likeness, similar to, just like any type of thing that you see that's similar to something, resemblance, a model or shape. Why do you think that woman came out so beautiful? He said, we ain't never seen nobody so beautiful, fashion like you. On the outer, and you have wide wisdom on the inside, which means you beautiful on the outer and inner. That's what the king said about it. It says, likewise, similar to, figures, resembling, manner, fashion, right? That word for resemble is having qualities or features, especially of those of appearance. Why do you think she came in that way? And in common with someone or something, looking or seen, right? This is all about, he said, Bethula being defiled. He's saying, you're trying to defile the temple. And she's like, you're trying to defile us and defile the actual virgin sanctuary. And she dressed up in the image and likeness of Yahuwah. It's similar to the quality of state of being similar to something. She was in a similitude of Yahuwah, like a ambassador. And that's what both male and female have to be inside as the body of Mashiach, as both male and female, as the body of Yahushua Mashiach. You gotta be the same way. Why? Because you're trying to accomplish his enterprise, right? It's Bereshit 2:7. Then Yahuwah Elohim formed man from the dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living creature. Then Yahuwah Elohim formed man. He said he became a living creature. They say kind of fash, right? It says formed. That word for formed is yetzar, to form, to fashion. Human activity, the preordained purpose of situations, squeezing. Right? He molded, to mold and form as a potter, to form, to fashion. Why do you think that person was in that state? Why, when you start to go from one state to another state, like she went from sackcloth and ashes to putting on apparel and beauty, everybody marveling to get, and then she got higher and higher and higher until she got to the highest point, one of the high officials. But then she started talking about a higher official, even higher than all the other officials that she came to see, right? And he says that word for soul, or say living soul, that word for soul, they say living creature, that word for creature is nafash. It means soul, self, life, creature, person, appetite. Living being with life in the blood. A living being with life in the blood, right? So you, inner being, right? So they say you both wise on the outside, wise on the inner man, and you beautiful on the countenance on the outer man. But then she started talking about they're gonna be covered in blood after you take them and you destroy them all. He said, why did Yahushua have to die? It's an activity of mind, right? The mind is living. It's a living being. Your mind is it has activity. It is a living being. And if you don't bring it in subjection, it'll run wild like children. It's a living being. Mind of morality, right? So they say vitality, right? That's one of the words. One of the words is vitality. It also means self or person, desire, passion, appetite, and emotion. Right? It's also what? The mind, the nefesh, the soul is the vitality. It is the state of being strong and active energy. That's what your nefesh is. Right? It gives energy. It's an energetic source of your body, and your mind is alive. Right? Just like your flesh is alive. Parts of your body is alive. And if one doesn't bring it into a certain state, it'll literally control you. Literally. Right, so look at it. Here we go. This is 1 Corinthians 15:50. I tell you this, brothers and sisters, flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of Yahuwah, nor does perishable inherit imperishable. Why? Because flesh and blood can't inherit it. Why? Because you're looking at your body, your natural man, your flesh and your blood, which is going to perish. It's automatically already destined for dust, just like Adam was destined for dust. Perishable is what? Something that, especially a food, likely to decay or go bad quickly. Why do you think your life is like a vapor of smoke? Perishable decays very fast. It says imperishable, not perishable, or subject to decay. That's your inner man. Enduring or occurring forever, imperishable fame. Like it never goes away. He said, you both beautiful in the outer man and inner man, but your inner man is perishing, but your inner man is like a beauty. Matter of fact, it has wisdom on the inside of it. This is Luke 24:36-40. As they were talking about these things, Yahushua himself stood among them and said to them, Shalom to you. But they were startled and frightened and thought they saw a ruach, a figment of their imagination. Are you talking about like a phantom-like being? That's the Damuth, when he made Adam in his own image and likeness. Damuth. A apparition, something that is translucent. They supposing they saw a ruach, a spirit, a ghost. And he said to them, why are you troubled and why does doubt arise in your heart? Because Satan in their mind. And you know why? See my hands and my feet, that it is I. Touch me and see. He said, touch me and see for yourself. For a ruach does not have flesh and bones as you see. Amazingly, he talked about the sanctuary. He said lest they defile the sanctuary and they touch the oil, they were going to kill animals in the book of Judas that they weren't supposed to lawful to keep. And then they're going to take the oil and the bread out of the temple nobody was supposed to touch. But he said, he told them to touch him, though. He told the people, his disciples in the house, to touch him. But what happened after this? For the ruach does not have flesh and bones, as you see that I have, me, flesh and blood. For a ruach does not have flesh and blood. A ruach doesn't have flesh and bones, as you see that I have. And when he had said this, he showed him his hands and his feet. Why? Right, this is Ukinan 20, 11-17. But Marim stood weeping outside the tomb, and as she wept, she stooped to look into the tomb. And she saw two Malachim in white, sitting where the body of Yahushua had lain. One at the head and one at the feet. And they said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? And she said to them, They have taken my master, and I do not know where they have laid him. Having said this, she uttered around and saw Yahushua standing, but she did not know that it was Yahushua. Yahushua said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking? Supposing him to be the gardener. Supposing him to be the gardener. She said to him, Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. And Yahushua said to her, Mary. She turned and said to him in Aramaic, Rabbani, which means teacher. Yahusha said to her, do not cling to me. Now this is before he went into there and showed his hands and feet, but he let the disciples touch him. For I have not ascended to my Ab, but go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, and my Elohim, your Elohim. The word for cling is in Greek is G680. It means haptameh. It means to attach oneself, to touch. He said, don't touch me. He said, don't touch me. He said, don't touch me. Bereshit 3, 1 through 3. Now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field, Nakash, that Yahuwah Elohim had made. And he said to the woman, isn't that what Yahushua doing in the garden too? Ain't he in the garden too? Did Yahuwah actually say you shall not eat of the tree, of any tree in the garden? Ain't in the garden right here? She's supposing to be in the garden. And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but Yahuwah Elohim said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree in the midst of the garden. Aren't they in the garden up there when she was? Neither shall you touch it. He said, don't touch me. Don't cling to me. Lest you die. Now he just saved her life. Because if she would have touched him, she would have never fulfilled the rest of this Torah. Had she touched him, she surely would have died. And we all would have been dead. We would have been all men most miserable. But he would have transgressed the bar. And you know what happened? You know why he gonna make her? Why you know why she gonna transgress? You know how he had to stop her from committing sin? Just like in the garden, how the Nakash is supposed to stop, but he ain't in the Nakash. Yahusha is the actual word in the flesh, and she was getting ready to touch him. And had she touched him, it wouldn't have been no all that resurrection would have been canceled out. You know how you get immersed into Yahusha? And you put him on and you resurrect, and then you get defiled right after that. He said, you just messed up your whole resurrection. You know how he's talking about you get in and you come out, don't touch me. He said, I have not ascended to my Father. He said, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. That's what's going to happen to him. And that's what's going to happen to you when you defile one of his virgins. That's what Yahushua was right here. He was a virgin. He said, don't cling to me, don't touch me. He was just like Yusuf when he came into the house. Yusuf was a virgin. And she went up to try to touch him, and he's like, are you trying to molest me too? He said, don't touch me. Right? That word for you shall not touch, that word for touch is naga. You shall not touch, to approach. To be stricken. You got to stricken yourself. To touch, to lay a hand upon. He said, don't you even put your hand on me. To lie with a woman. That's why he was telling her, don't touch me. Because he had some things he had to fulfill. Because had she touched him, he would never fulfill the rest. Because he had to fulfill some other things. Had she touched him, this whole thing would have been over with. He said, don't even touch me. There's a reason why he said that. To be stricken, to cause the touch, to approach. There's a reason why he tells you to do it. He told her not to do it. And the very same thing you see when he said, my eyes will not look on a maid, my eyes will not look on certain things. I made a covenant with my eyes. Yahushua made a covenant with the bar to fulfill it. And he could not reverse it. Even when he got out from the grave on the third day, and he appeared the fourth day, and we just passed that, and now we're on the first day of the first Shabbat, on the 7-day count, 7 Shabbat count, going toward Chag Shabuah. Remember, everything that took place, all took place after Chag Matzah. You had Chag Matzah, then you had the waving the sheep, then you had the count the 7 Shabbats, all the way to Chag Shabuah. Nothing stopped. This all happened during the same year. It all happened the same year. Right? To touch, to what? To reach, to strike, right? So this book of Revelation, Hazun, chapter 14 and 1. Then I looked, and behold, on Mount Sion stood the Lamb, and with him 144,000, who had his name and his father's name written in their foreheads. And I heard a voice from Shamaim like a roar of many waters, like the sound of loud thunder. He said, does it sound familiar? It's the voice of many waters and loud thunder. And the voice was heard like the sound of harpists playing with their harps. And they were singing a new song. They were rapping. They were singing a new song with harps. With the lyre, with the harp, open the dark, singing on the harp. They were singing a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and before the elders. No one can learn the song except the 144,000. He said, so you're going to try to learn it. They're the only people that can learn it. Who have been redeemed from the earth. They've been redeemed. They say, made brought back to value. You're not redeemed with corruptible things, silver and gold, with the precious blood of Yahushua Mashiach. All that immersion you who have put him on, immersion to his death, that you may resurrect to newness of life. And what they do? It is these who have not been defiled themselves with women. Don't touch me. Isn't that what he said? Now you see why he can be touched. After he rose from the grave, and she thought he was a gardener, she thought he was a gardener. He was translucent. It was kind of didn't really seem like what he was. He was hidden from my eyes. That's what translucent is, because the bar was hid from her thoughts and her mind. Just like David said in the second month, or he said in the second letter of the Aleph, which is Ba'ith, this is the second day of the second month. He said in his mind, "Don't touch me. Don't touch me." There's a reason why he said that. This is second letter. This is his house. You're going to defile the house. He's talking about defile the house, like the Judas was saying. They're going to defile that. They defiled the house, the sanctuary. She was going to defile the sanctuary. Because he said, in one day I'm going to tear this house down, and 3 days I'm going to build it back. They was talking about the temple of his body. If she would have touched him, she would have defiled the sanctuary. She would have defiled Yahushua. And get what it says. For they are virgins. That's what he was. He was a virgin. Like Yusuf. He was a Bethula. But he was Na'ar. He was a virgin. And it is these who follow the Lamb where he goes. They follow Yahushua wherever he goes. These have been redeemed from mankind as the first fruits of Yahuwah. And Yahushua the Lamb. Why? Because they cut off the desire. They made a covenant with their eyes. Their ayn. Bereaved. They cut him. They are Yehudi not of the flesh, but of the Ruach. And in their mouth, no lie, And in no mouth, no lie was found. Was there a lie in Yehuda's mouth? There was. Was there a lie in Kop's mouth? There was. He had to be made again. All over again. That's why he said repent and do your first works over and become a virgin again. Already mercy who shall put him on to resurrection and newness of life. There's a reason why he says that. And they are blameless. They are blameless. He said, why are they blameless? Because they didn't follow themselves. Because they are virgins. And that's what you're supposed to be. Bethula. And you got to present yourself a certain way. You got to be a virgin. Just like Hadassah. As the bride of Yahushua Mashiach, that's what you got to be. 144,000 equal to 9. People say, what does that equal to? Adam. Those are true virgins. Bethulas are Adam. You're like Adam. You know, like Adam. And Yahuwah baraked them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth. And he also gave him something else too. He said, we done talked about that so many times. And they were virgins in the garden. They both were virgins, both male and female. How you say about that? This is Shemuth, Exodus chapter 19, verse 1. And on the third He said on the third new month or Qahalath month. When's the third month? We're in the second month. We ain't in the third month yet. We almost there. After the people of Yashral had gone out of the land of Mizraim. Why? Because this is the time when we come out of Mizraim. The third month is what? You're counting the Shabbats, the 7 Shabbats toward the Chag Shabuah. You're counting the Shabbats. We're on the first one. Just like the first day of creation, let there be light. In the house, because remember it starts with Bereshit, Bara, Elohim, Ak, Ba'ith. And it says, and you go to verse 9, and you're skipping down. And Yahuwah said to Mashah, behold, I am coming to you in the thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with you, and may all also believe you forever. Huh? He said, I'm coming to you in the thick cloud. Oh, he's coming down in a thick cloud, and you're going to be speaking to the people that they may believe you forever. Let's see what happened. And when Mashah told the words to the people of Yahuwah, Yahuwah said to Mashah, go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their garments and be ready for the third day. What's going to happen on the third day of the third month? What's going to happen on the third day of the third month? And what's going to happen? For on the third day, Yahuwah will come down on Mount Sinai. I say Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. What are they going to do? He said in 3 days from that day, right? So 3 days from it says on the third day of the new Qahalath, right? I don't know what Shabbat that is. I think it's like the 6th Shabbat of the count. But I don't know. And consecrate today and tomorrow, and let them wash their garments and be ready the third day. For the third day, Yahuwah will come down on Mount Sinai to the side of the people. And you shall set limits for the people all around. You're going to set limits. And what happened? Saying, take care not to go up to the mountain, or nigah the edge of it. That word nigah is touch it. Don't even touch the edge of the mountain. Why do you think Yahushua told that woman, don't touch me? I have not ascended to my Father. Don't touch the edge of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death. Isn't that what he said to the woman in the garden? Isn't that what he said to the woman in the garden? He said, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. Why do you think he said, don't touch me? He said, if you touch the edge of the mountain, why do you think he was the mountain? I'm not going to be able to go up to the top of the mountain, because you got to be in a certain state of mind. Why? No hand shall nagah him. Why do you think no hand shall touch him? The same word, nagah. Why do you think he say don't touch me? See, when you ignorant of the bar and you dealing with Yahushua, you got to be real sharp in your mind. Because that woman was not sharp in her mind. She was walking according to the flesh, not according to the Ruach. You got to be real sharp in your thoughts. And get what it says. But he shall be stoned or shot. Now you see what he just saved that woman's life. He would say, oh yeah, you know, Yahushua got up from the grave on the third day. He was pure, a virgin, never been defiled, never been touched, and then he got to ascend up, and you're gonna go touch him. What you think is gonna happen to you? What do you think is gonna happen to the woman in the garden? What happened to Cool? And Adam. That woman, he saved that woman's life. They shall come up to the mountain, huh? It says they shall be stoned aside, whether beast or man. It didn't matter who you were. For he shall not live, he or she. But notice how he used the woman. He was going to touch him, and she was just like a he. It says, and when it says when Yahubal sounds, the Yahubal, that's the name. That's what they talk about. It's a word for trumpet. The Yahubal sounds a long blast. Why would he put Yahubal as the sound of the long blast? Because these people worship Baal. It's all vanity, right? When Yahweh sounds a long blast, they shall come up to the mountain. They got to ascend up. But they had to be a certain way. So Mashah went down from the mountain to the people and consecrated the people. They consecrated the people. They washed their garments. And then what Yehuda did and all these people? You know what Asenath did? And guess what? And he said to the people, be ready for the third day and do not go near women. These are they who are 144,000 who were redeemed from the world, who did not defile themselves with women. These are 144,000 who didn't defile themselves with women, because everybody didn't obey the commandment. And guess what happened? That's who the 144,000 were. They were, for they are virgins. Because you know why they're virgins? Because they're doing it according to the Ruach. This is, like, that was a fleshly thing. He said, according to the Ruach, he said, don't touch me. Because that woman did not know when he rose on the third day, did not touch him. Because he had to ascend up to the mountain. He said, you know, he said, what did he say? I have not ascended to my Father yet. In Shamayim. Let me go present myself and ascend to Yahuwah and learn what he needs to tell me before you start touching on me. Because that's what he was literally telling that woman. Because had she kept going, I want to touch you, and still kept going, he's like, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die. Right, this book of Exodus 19:16-20. On the morning of the third day, there were thunders and lightnings and thick clouds on the mountain. He said there were thunders and lightning. Did you just read that? Didn't the Malachite come down with white apparel? And they garments flashed like lightning? And guess what happened? He said, in cloud. He said, then the cloud, he said, Yahuwah gonna come down in the cloud, didn't he? And guess what? A thick cloud on the mountain, and a very loud trumpet blast, so that all the people of the camp trembled. And there was a loud Turah blast. Then Mashah brought the people out of the camp to meet Yahuwah. He brought them out to meet Yahuwah. And they took their stand at the foot of the mountain, because they weren't supposed to touch him. That's why that woman wasn't supposed to touch him. He wasn't supposed to go. Yahushua wasn't supposed to go near a woman after he rose from the grave, because he had to ascend back up to his Father. Now, Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke because Yahuwah had descended on it in fire. And guess what happened? The smoke of it went up like smoke of a kilim, and the whole mountain trembled greatly. It was shaking like an earthquake. And at the sound of the shofar grew louder and louder. Mashah spoke, and Elohim answered him in thunder. Yahuwah came down on Mount Sinai and on top of the mountain. He did what? He came down on Mount Sinai, on the top of the mountain. And what happened? And Yahuwah called the Mashah to the top of the mountain. He called Mashah to the top of the mountain. But they could not go touch a woman. They couldn't come near him because he was a virgin. He purified himself. And he's a Bethula. And he had to present himself a Bethula, a virgin, according to the Ruach. And guess what happened? And Mashah went up. And he was a virgin. And he went up. Right? This is the book of Acts, chapter 1-3. And in the first book of O Theophilus, I dealt with all that Yahushua began to do and teach, until the day when he was taken up after he had given command through the Qahalath Ruach. And wasn't the Messiah given commandment by the Qahalath Ruach? To the Shalakim, whom he had chosen. And he presented himself alive to them after his suffering, with many proofs, appearing to them during 40 days. 40 days of what? Of the counting toward Chag Shabuah. A counting of the 50-day count, the 49 days when you get to evening before Chag Shabuah. He was literally in the third month. That would put us, we're in the second month. This is the first one. This 4, 5. That's the fifth. That's the fifth Shabbat before Chag Shabuah. That's when they did that thing on the Mount Sinai. That's counting toward it. That's the fifth Shabbat. In between. 2 more Shabbats to get to Chag Shabuah. In the book of Exodus. And get what it says. So how are people saying that they got this and they say you don't understand it? And you see Yahushua saying, don't touch me. He's like, don't touch me. And this is right here. And it says, commanded through the Qahalath Ruach, the Shalakim, the apostles Shalakim, that's what they were, whom he had chosen. And he presented himself alive with many infallible proofs, appearing to them during 40 days, speaking about the kingdom of Yahuwah. So after Chag Shabuah was over, those 7 days, went to the next Shabbat, waving the sheaf, counting 7 Shabbats. When he was there for 40 days after that. So he got 40 days. That's 40 days after the last Shabbat. So that's 40 days. So they had about 9 more days. He was there about 9 more days. Say about 49 days that evening, because that was when the 50th day started. He was there until about 40 days. And this is Acts 6:1-6-11. So when they came together, when they had come together, they asked him, Master, will you at this time restore the Malkuth, the kingdom, to Yasharal? You mean the church to Yasharal? No, he's talking about the kingdom. And he said to them, it is not for you to know the times and seasons that the Father has fixed by his own authority. And then we talk about fixing our thought process on his debar. Because if you don't fix your mind on the debar, you're going to mess up. Because if you don't, you're going to be like that woman. Can I touch you? Not even knowing. He said he said something about to happen to you. And to both of you. Right? He said, be renewed in the ruach of your mind, right? And it says right here, but you will receive power when the Qahalath Ruach has come upon you. And you will be witnesses in Jerusalem and all Yehuda and Yasharal, Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And then it says, and when he had said these things, as they were looking on, he was lifted up, and a cloud took him out of their sight, because Yahuwah then came down on the cloud, on the top of the mountain. And what mountain did he leave from? I don't have it in here. Mount of Olives. Olivet, which is a day's journey from Jerusalem. The same thing that you saw with Mashah. And people say, I'm Mashah. I'm Moses. I'm like Mashah. These are false Mashiachs. These are all false Mashiachs. And they got the spirit of falsehood in their heart. Because even the Shalakim understood that when he was taken. That he's Mashah and we are the servants of Mashah. We are the ones who follow the meekest man on earth. And guess what it says? And while they were gazing into Shamayim, and he went, behold, 2 men stood by them in white robes. And guess what it says? And it said, men of Galilee, why do you stand looking into Shamayim? For this Yahushua whom was taken from you into Shamayim, who ascended up. That's why he told them, don't touch me. Because you'll defile me, I'll be defiled women, I won't be a virgin anymore, and I won't be able to ascend to Yahuwah Elohim. That's how you actually be able to ascend. You have to cut off all desires in order to be able to go to that height. You have to. Why do you think he said, I'm going to covenant my eyes? Why do you think you got to cut off all desire? You can't be a guarder of virgins. Why do you think Yahushua was a guarder of virgins? 5 were wise and 5 were foolish. He's a guarder of virgins. He cut that desire that people have within the flesh. He's like, I'm a Bethula, a kingdom. I'm a virgin guarder. I guard virgins. I guard Bethula. And guess what it says? Who was taken up from you in the Shamayim will come in the same way you saw him go into Shamayim. Isn't that what Mashah did? He went up to the top of the mountain where Yahuwah was, and it came down like fire. And amazingly, the chariot of fire, Abraku Kanaf Halak Ruach, is not the bar like fire, came down and took him, just like Yahuwah came down and took him. Took Mashah. And you know how we are? What happened to that man Mashah since he been gone? We don't know what happened to him. We don't know where he went. And you know what everybody did? They eat and drink and rose up to play. And they made an idol. And they even got the Kahan, try to get the Shalakim involved, just like Kaf was. He was eating with the other people. Right? You try to get other people involved in your stuff. That's why other people were defiled too. Right? And you start to find yourself in the same situation, just like the children of Yasharal did in the wilderness. But this is all a part of this whole thing. He went into Shamayim because he was a virgin. He was a Bethula. He didn't defile himself with women. They were virgins. They said, don't touch me. Why? Because this is important. This is Leviticus 23, 4 through 15. Just going through it real quick. These are the appointed feasts of Yahuwah, the Qahalath convocations, that you shall proclaim at the time appointed for them. In the first month, in the 14th day of the month, at twilight is Yahuwah's Pesach. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread to Yahuwah. For 7 days you shall eat kag matzah, and the first day you shall have a Qahalath convocation. And you shall do no ordinary work, but you shall proclaim a food offering to Yahuwah 7 days, and on the 7th day, Shabath day, Qahalath convocation, you shall do any ordinary work. And Yahuwah Elohim spoke to Mashah, saying, speak to the people of Yasharal and say to them, when you have come into the land that I give you to reap its harvest, you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruit, or a sheaf of your harvest to the Kahan, and he shall weigh the sheaf before Yahuwah, so that you may be accepted. And on the day after the Shabbat, the priest shall wave it. And on the day when you wave that sheaf, ye shall offer a male of a year old without blemish, without an offering to Yahuwah. And a grain offering with it, ye shall make of 2 ephahs, and a fine flour mixed with oil, a food offering to Yahuwah, a pleasing aroma. And guess what happened? And a drink offering, and it shall be a wine, a fourth of hin, and ye shall eat neither bread nor grain nor parched fresh until the same day, until you have brought an offering of Yahuwah your Elohim. It is a statute forever throughout your generations and all your dwellings. Right. So you see all this. Leviticus 24:15. And you shall count 7 full weeks. We're on the first one, the first Shabbat, that first week. We just ended the first one. You shall count 7 full weeks, not half a week. When the sun slithers down and it goes over here. Full, right? From the day after the Shabbat, the day after the weekly Shabbat, after the Kag Matzah. From the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, you shall count 50 days. Why do you think he was there for 40 days? He was telling them, he was showing them by many infallible proofs. He was already giving them proof that he was risen from the grave. That the plants have now risen from the grave, because the sun was on the celestial plane. The sun was coming back, just like you see the plants coming up today. He was showing them how he rose from the grave, just like the plants are now coming back. He was showing them. To the day after the 7th Shabbat. It says, to the day after the 7th Shabbat, right? The day after the 7th Shabbat, when the Shabbat come in, that 7th Shabbat, then it's the time for Kag Shabuah. But then you see him appearing on the 3rd month, on the 5th Shabbat, telling him to be ready against the 3rd day, because Yahuwah coming down to take Mashah, he gonna ascend up. That's the same thing that happened to Yahusha before he was taken. He will, and get what it says. Then shall present a grain offering to Yahuwah, a grain offering of new grain to Yahuwah, because you're supposed to have things planned. And guess what happened? 7 days a week, right? So you got 7 days a week. Times 7 is 49, right? 7 times 7, 49. At evening, because the day starts at evening time, is the 50th day. The Ruach Marakaf al-Panim rose upon the face on the darkness, not in daytime, at darkness. Where the house where they were sitting at evening time, at night. The same way it happened in night watches. This is why he said Barak is even fine so doing at night. Everything happens at night. Why do you think the woman rose at night? She said at nighttime. Yehudia was already, and then she was dressed and she had the oil with the flax of oil, with the grains and the bread, all in her body, all in her pouch. And it says right here, it says evening. So 7 times 7, 49. At evening, the 50th day starts, right? At evening time, evening, morning, night. When the sun goes down at evening, what happens on the 50th day? Just like the first day of creation, the Ruach moved upon the face of the waters. And Yahuwah said, let it be light. Isn't that written in your Torah, says you are Elohim? It said, how many days was Yahusha seen and teaching? 40 days. From when, after waving the sheep, the journey continues, right? I say that's why, because you're on that journey. It don't stop. As soon as you stop, you're going to be like the woman trying to touch the person, or you're going to be like Adam in the garden, don't know what to say. When this Nakash come in and the woman doing her own thing, you're going to be just like Yehuda. Yes, she was representing Yahuwah, yet she was dressed in all her bright apparel and looking beautiful. And then she came with wisdom, but it was all about craft. He says the set and stumbling block, but it was all Yahuwah's purpose. Everything's all a part of it. Because you put it in your own hand. But all this is all part of it. And when people do that, just understand the good and the evil. And why things are, why Yahuwah creates good and evil. Because sometimes the evil come, the craftiness, to take you down. And you be thinking that you're going to, he said, oh, we got such beauty. Look how we look. And you think you be going out to go and help other people, not even knowing you are sent out to deceive the world. Because you're transgressing Yahuwah's word. And people say, no, they ain't. And some people don't believe they are. This is Tehillim, Psalms 12 and 6. The word of Yahuwah are pure words. What do you think is happening right now? Like silver refined in the furnace of the ground, on the ground, purified 7 times. What happens when the sun comes back? What do you mean purified 7 times? Just like we go count 7 Shabbats, the sun is coming back to the longest day. It's purified 7 times. Each Shabbat should be purifying you up into Kag Shabuah. Purifying you 7 times. All the way up until that day. It's a purification process. It's to uncloud the mind of the judgments and the doubts in the one's mind. 7 times, right? This Psalms 119, 116, 61 through 66. The princes persecute me, the rulers, without a cause. But my heart stands in awe of your word. I rejoice at your word like one who finds great spoil. I hate and abhor falsehood. So if you think Yahusha don't hate falsehood, and a woman too, you think he don't hate falsehood in a woman or in a man? I love your Torah. 7 times a day I praise you for your righteous rules. 7 times 7, 49. Why do you say 7 times a day? Because it's purified 7 times. Great peace have those who love your Torah. Nothing can make them stumble. Nothing. Right? So that word for 7 times, that word for praise is halal. 7 times a day I will halal to shine, to boast, to make boast. Praiseworthy. What shines during the 7 cycles? The sun comes back. Why do you think Yahusha was shining up until the time when he was taken? It's shining 7 times. He was trying to show a pattern. That pattern is still here. And then he was boasting and talking about how he rose in the grave, but he was boasting in Yahuwah, how he raised him from the grave. It says, give in marriage. That's what halal is. You're supposed to celebrate. It says, stuftively, right? To be clear. Right? To be clear. That's why he had to keep doing it over and over again. This is Psalms 2 and 6. As for me, I have set my king on Saon, my Qahalath hill, my mountain, my heart. And I will tell, he said, I've set my king on Saon, my Qahalath mountain. Why do you think he was descending up to the top of the mountain? Why do you think Yahuwah descended on the mountain? He set his king on top of the mountain. Who was the king? Yahuwah was the king. Yahusha is the king. Why do you think he was on top of the mountain? And I will tell of the decree. Yahuwah said to me, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. Why do you think he was on top of the mountain? Why do you think Yahuwah came down and got his son? Why do you think he had him ascend up to the top of the mountain? Why do you think he was taken from the mountain? Why do you think he told the woman, don't touch me? It's Matthew 3, 13 through 17. Then Yahusha came from Galilee to Yardan and Yuchanan to be immersed by him. And Yuchanan would have prevented him, saying, I need to be immersed by you, do you come to me? But Yahusha answered him, let it be so. Now, for thus it is fitting to fulfill all righteousness. Now, if that woman had touched him, it wouldn't have been no fulfillment of all righteousness. Not even from the garden. So did he actually fulfill it when he cried out in totality? And he fulfilled all things, and he put everything, when he cried out the second time and gave it the Ruach, did he fulfill everything? No. He fulfilled some. And then when he got up from the grave, he still had to fulfill things. It wasn't finished. That part of it was finished. This part of it still had to be finished. And had these things been altered, a lot of what you believe would have been still in question. And it says that then he contended, and when Yahusha was immersed, immediately he went up from the water, and behold, the Shamayim were open, and saw the Ruach of Yahuwah descending like a dove, coming to rest upon him. Just like animals are not. When you have authority of the oath, the birds, they ain't afraid of you. They'll come and land on your shoulder. Man, they descend right on you. They'll come right next to you, and you'll hold them in your hand. That's how the Ruach is. The Ruach ain't gonna be afraid of you. The Ruach gonna descend right on you, just like a bird lands on your shoulder and in your hand. When you have these qualities, and you know what happens after that? It'll stay with you. It will stay with you. And get what it says. And then he contended, and when Yahusha was immersed, he immediately went from the water, and behold, the Shamayim were open, and he saw the Ruach of Yahuwah descending like a dove and rest on him. And behold, the voice of the Shamayim said, this is my beloved son, me, Adam, in whom I am well pleased. You mean the virgin. So you think about it, Yahusha done rose again on the third day, and he let a woman defile him right after he got up. What do you think Yahuwah would have said to him? When he told Mashah to set apart yourself in the third day. And he said, keep yourself from women, you a virgin, and you got to ascend up. Think about what he said to him. Right? It descended like a dove. Just like a dove lands on your shoulder. It'll come down and fly and land right on your shoulder, and land right next to you, holding your hand. It'll stay with you. This book of Matthew 17, 1-8. And after 6 days, Yahusha took with him Qahalath and James and Yahushua his brother, and led them up to a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun. You know, we've seen the sun right now. It's just like the sun, just like Shamshun's name means like the sun. And get what it says. And his clothes became white as light. And what happened? And behold, there appeared to them Mashah. And what they say? And Aydah, talking with him. What do you mean Aydah? Because Aydah ascended too. Just like Mashah ascended. And amazing that he said, they both talking with me. Because they both, even Yahushua himself ascended. And he got 2 people with them to witness him, because you need 2 or 3 witnesses. And then he says, and Qahalath said to Yahushua, Master, is it good that we are here? He's like, hold up. Is it good that we even here? Because we know that you are set apart, and you kept yourself from women, and we ascend up this mountain, and we seeing people who have kept themselves from women and virgins, and we ain't did that. Is it good for us to even be here? He said, if you wish, I will make 3 tents here. One for you, one for Mashah, and one for Aydah. He's like, I'm going to be your servant. Help me out. Because we know what the tent for? To cover you up. To cover you so people can't see you. And get what it says. It says, and he was still speaking when, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. Yahuwah came down, and a voice from the cloud said of fire, this is my beloved son, in whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. He said, I ain't going to listen. And then they ain't going to listen to him. This is my beloved Ben, my son. When the disciples heard this, they fell on their faces and were terrified. He said, people ain't even terrified. To these who I look, those who are poor and contrite heart, who tremble at my debar. This is my beloved son, whom I am well pleased. Nobody gonna hit the ground. Nobody ain't afraid. Both male and female. Nobody's scared. You're not even terrified. They be like, oh, no, I heard this already. They're not even terrified. When they said it, even Yehuda, Judas, when he said it to them twice, they hit the ground. Every time he said, I am he. They all hit the ground. But not people today. He said, they bold. They bold to speak things against Yahuwah. He's like, nah, they bold. These people are real bold. But Yahusha came and touched them, saying, rise and have no fear. He's like, okay, then get up then. Amazingly, he had to get the ground first, and he says, they actually fear. He said, rise and have no fear. And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Yahusha only. Why? Because he told you to search the scriptures. And then when you think you have eternal life, it's all talking about me. It ain't talking about Mashar and all Yahoo. It's all speaking about me. It's always talking about him. That's what he was trying to show him. You know, Yahoo was taken up in the whirlwind. That was me. You know, Mashar, when he ascended up to the mountain, that was me. That's why they only saw him only. It's Yeshayahu 60, 1-2. Arise and shine. Arise, shine, for the light or has come, and the kabod of Yahuwah has risen upon you. That's what the sun doing right now. The sun has risen upon you. Why do you think he was only him alone? Why do you think he picked him up? Because what happens when the sun comes near you, and then you sit there, and you're on the ground, and then the sun comes and shines on you, it lifts your plant up. That's why he told them to get up. He lifted them up, and he pulled them up from the ground where they were. That's why he was the sun. That's why he told them to get up. And he grabbed them by the hand with his rays, and he lifted them up, just like a plant rises now. As we move towards the longest day. And get what it says. Come, and kabod, Yahuwah has risen upon you. For behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and thick darkness the people. But Yahuwah will arise upon you. That you may dispel the darkness of errors in your mind. Because Satan enunciates in your mind opinions of Elohim. And you know what he does by that? They take you from one Elohim and one Elohim and one Amunah. That's why when Yahushua stood up there, it was only him and him alone. And he shone like the sun, and he told them to get up. Just like a plant rises from the ground. There's only one person there after that. He said, risen upon you, and his kabod shall be seen upon you. Why do you think her beauty, when Yehuda went to those people, he said, you wise and you're beautiful on the outside. It was seen upon her. It was seen upon her by both carnal, by both flesh and ruach, because they saw her flesh in her face, and then they saw the ruach with her words that she spoke. But then they understood, your Elohim will be our Elohim. This is Ecclesiastes Qahalath 8:1. Who is like the wise? And who knows the interpretation of a thing? A man's kakama or kakma makes his face to shine, or makes his face old. And the hardness of his panim is changed. Why do you think his whole body changed to white? His garments, everything turned white, which means he ain't had white on. Everything turned white. He ain't had white on. It's just the fact that when he actually prayed and he did that, everything turned white. And guess what happened after that? He said, stand up. He grabbed him by the hand. It was only him and him alone. He said, it make his face to shine. Why do you think he shone just like the sun? That's why you think your face will shine like this. Why do you think he told you to wash your face and anoint your head when you fasting? You're doing all this stuff out here. You're supposed to look beautiful. Right? That word for face is actually, it was a pace. It says, a man's wisdom make his face to shine, and the hardness of his face is changed. Right? What word is this? Physical. That's what happened when AI change your words. It says, a man's wisdom make his face to shine, and the hardness of his face is changed, right? It says right here, this word eyes, right? That word for a face is eyes. His eyes, right? His eyes, right? His eyes. And it says right here, it means his might, his physical, his social or political, his strength. His what? His power. His strength is changed. His majesty is changed. It says what? And the hardness of his face is changed. Well, he said the strength of his face is changed. I'm sorry. The strength of his face is changed. The hardness, that word for hardness is strength. The strength of his face is changed. How you say? His force, his security, his physical face is changed. The boldness of his face has changed. The power and strength of his face has changed. His power and might of his face has changed from darkness to light. Because he went from darkness to light. It says it makes his face to shine, right? His panim to shine, and the hardness of his face has changed. His literal face and physical structure of his face has changed. Why do you think his face shone and his body shone like the sun? Right? His body shone like the sun. Right? This is Hebrews 5:5-6. So also Mashiach did not exalt himself, being made a high gadol. He didn't exalt himself. Made it, he says, exalt himself to be made a high kahan, or high gadol kahan, but was appointed by him who said to him, you are my son, today I have begotten you. And he says also in another place, you are a priest forever after the order of Malach Sadiq. Ephesians 5:3-14. But sexual morality and all impurity and covetousness must not be named among you as proper as among Chdshim. Let no filthiness or foolish talk or crude joking be heard out of your mouth. It says, be crude joking which are out of place, but instead let there be thanksgiving. Why? Because what comes out of your mouth in all impurity, if you have doing sexual morality, impurity, and covetousness, how your offering going to be accepted? How you going to be able to send up? He said, you ain't going to be no virgin no more. You're not going to be a Bethula. You can't be like, oh, don't touch me. I haven't ascended to my Father. No, you're defiled. But instead, let there be thanksgiving. Let there be halal 7 times a day. For you may be sure of this, that everyone who is sexually immoral or impure, who is covetous, that is an idolater, has no inheritance in the kingdom of Mashiach, Yahusha, and Yahuwah. Why? Because you're defiled. You're defiled. He said, you ain't no Bethula, you ain't following Yahushua everywhere you go. He said, let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things, the wrath of Yahuwah is coming upon the sons of disobedience. Therefore, do not become partners with them. He said, link up in alliance. Don't. For at one time, you were in darkness. He said, before, your face wasn't shining, and you ain't had no wisdom, no kakam, no kakma, no hakma. You were in darkness. But now you are light in the world. You are like the sun. You like he said, your face shining like the sun. Walk as the children of Or, for the fruit of light is found in all that is good, right, and true. And try to discern what is pleasing to Yahuwah. Take no part in unfruitful works of darkness. All good deeds lead to eternal life in the kingdom of Shamayim, as we read about in the first 2. But instead, expose them. How you expose it? By the bar. For it is shameful to even speak of the things that are done in secret. But when anything is exposed by light, it becomes visible. You can see it. For anything that becomes visible is light. Therefore it says, awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Mashiach will shine on you. Why do you think they were on the ground as dead men? When they hit the ground, they bowed to the ground, and then he lifted them up. He said, the sun has shone on you. Right, so this is the Mimosa pudica. Pudica. Mimosa pudica. It's a plant. It's a plant that grows in certain parts of the world. Matter of fact, it's grown in other areas, like Costa Rica, South America, some parts of Uganda, some parts of Africa, some parts of the Caribbean. Right, it's Mimosa pudica. Right, the only reason I did this. Mimosa pudica, also called the sensitive plant. Right, just like we talk about Yahushua took part of our sensitivities, our flesh. Remember he did that? And he took on the parts of the same nature as us. And then what happened after he took on our same nature? He was tempted in all areas, and yet without sin. He was still remained a virgin. It's a sensitive plant. Sleepy grass, right? The sleepy grass. The sleepy plant. They call it the sleepy plant. Sleepy plant. It says action plant. It's also an action plant. It also is a humble plant. So we do all these things in our natural life. And it says, but it also means a humble plant. It's a touch me not. Touch and die plant. The shame plant. Amazingly, that's what they call it. And he says, in a creeping annual, a perennial flowering plant of the Pia legume family or the Fabaceae family, it is often grown for its curiosity value. The sensitive compound leaves quickly fold inward and droop when touched or shaken and reopen a few minutes later. And get what it says. For this reason, this species is commonly cited as the example of rapid plant movement. Like a number of other plant species, it undergoes changes in leaf orientation termed sleep or nastic movement. The foliage closes during darkness and reopens in light. And get what happened? The Mimosa pudica, also known as the sensitive plant, thrives during the summer months. You say, where we at now? We're in the summer months. The species native to the Caribbean, South and Central America, but now is a pan-tropical weed, can now be found in southern United States, South Asia, East Asia, Micronesia or Australia, South Africa, West Africa as well. It is not shade tolerant, and it is primarily found in soils of low nutrients and concentrations. Sensitive plant or shrieking plant derived from the Latin word mimosa, meaning to mimic, or pudica, meaning shy or bashful. It means shy or bashful, referring to the plant and the characteristics of folding its leaves when it's touched. He said, it's shy, and when you touch it, it folds its leaves. He said, why would it say this? Right, so this is the mimosa plant. Right. This is the mimosa plant. I don't know if my video worked. Looks like my video not working. Well, I'll upload it later. But when you touch the plant, I'm just going to describe it and I'm going to upload it. Right, so when you touch the plant, the leaves, when you touch the end of it, and then the leaves actually fold and close up after you touch it. And when you touch it, the leaves actually fold up after you touch it. And then what happens after that? It's like when Yahushua said, don't touch me. I have not ascended to my Father. And as soon as you touch it, the leaves fold back up and close right back where they went. Why? So you can't touch it anymore. Because it's a humble plant. It went from it's a humble plant. You can't, he said, don't touch it. Right? So all that is a part of the conglomerate movements of everything. But all that's a part of it. And most people don't know that, but that's a part of it. Well, I'm sorry, my video ain't working, but at the same time, you can go online, you can look it up. It's called a mimosa plant, and then you see it touched, and then it actually closes back up. Right? My video ain't working, but there it is. All I had to hit the button, right there it is, right there. Right? You see when you touch it, the leaves close back up, and they don't allow you to touch it again. They don't give you nothing to touch. That's how a Bethula has to be. That's how a virgin got to be. People are like, hold up. Right? And I say, just like when Satan, the Chdsh, came in the garden and tried to tempt the virgin woman in the garden. It's closed. We closed. Ain't nobody getting in here. And that's the same thing when it comes to a virgin getting defiled out here, or you getting your mind defiled. You know, I always start, close the doors of your mind. From all carnal will, all carnal thought. Why? Because you got to close. You can't open to the sun. You got to close in darkness. And then when the sun comes, then you open up. You don't just receive everything into your heart and your mind. The very same thing when it comes to your thought process and how you think. And you receiving words. That's why you talk about all these crude, joking things that are out of place. You don't want, if it's out of place, and Yahuwah says it's out of place, so why you letting it have a place inside of you? Why are you even opening your heart to it? Just like he says, cutting, berith, I made a covenant with my ears. I made a covenant with my eyes. I made a covenant with my mouth. Cut it off. Cut it. But that's the same thing. It look like a knife now. Before it looked like a big leaf. Now it look like it won't cut you. Right? But that's the mimosa plant. Right? Listen, Nazarene, actually the Shalakim, Basur, good news gives power over demons. You see then how important it is the acknowledgement of Yahuwah and the observance of the divine obedience. Why? Because if you don't understand the 49-day count, you don't understand the Chag and Muad, you ain't going to understand how Yahushua descended and what even a Bethula was, a virgin man was, and why he had told him to abstain, why he does don't touch me not. And why a woman has to present herself in a certain way even after she fasts. How are you going to know these things? Why? Because we're talking about divine obedience. But which not only protects those who believe from assaults of demons, this type of intellect protects you from the assaults of demons. Because demons operate on a higher thought process, a higher complex thinking. And if you're not really spiritually in tune, they'll deceive you. But also gives them command over those who rule over others. And therefore it's necessary for you who are of the Goyim nation to partake yourselves to Yahuwah and to keep yourself from all uncleanness, that the demons may be expelled and Yahuwah may dwell in you. And at the same time, by prayers, commit yourself to Yahuwah and call on his aid against the impudent demons for whatever things you ask, believing you will receive. But even the demons themselves, in proportion as they see Amunah grow in man. Why do you think Yahushua was there for 40 days? Showing them for many infallible proofs. And then he ascended up to the Father. Abba. He was trying to give them more proof when he ascended up so he can fulfill Mashah. They see Amunah growing man, in proportion they depart from him. They're going to leave. When you start taking in the intellect, they're going to leave. They can't stay. They can't deceive you anymore. Satan can't, like, man, I can't deceive him in that anymore. I can't deceive them in that anymore. I can't deceive them in that anymore. I can't deceive them in nothing. Get what it says? Residing only in the part in which something of infidelity still remains. He said, oh, that's that part. Oh, yeah, they still ain't got that right. But for those who believe in full Amunah, I'm talking about fullness of it. Are we talking about count 7 full weeks? And it said, count 7 full weeks. So how are these people got this, what they claim, and they not counting 7 full weeks to count Shabath? How they got it? And it said right here, they depart without any delay. For when a Ruach has come to Amunah of Yahuwah, it obtains the virtue of the heavenly water. It's like a cloud of peace overshadowed me. And guess what happened? By which they extinguishes the demon like a spark of fire. And then what we talked about last week? The spirit, after it left that woman, that son of Satan, he said, I'm going to come back. I'm going to find somebody. And then when it was over, the demon left sparks of fire. And then it left because it couldn't stay there anymore. Because what happened after that? The demon got expelled and was destroyed. Because the heavenly water was over that woman now. The Shaman water. And that thing came out like a spark of fire. Because the Munah belief and growed into that person. This Nazarene action of Shalakim, how demons get power with men. Therefore demons, as we have just said, when once they are able, by means or opportunities afforded them to convey themselves through base and evil actions into the bodies of men, women, and children, if they remain in them a long time through their own negligence, they don't put up residence, they don't put their own couch, they don't got their own little toaster in the house, right? They don't put their own little spin, they got their own little music. He said they do all types of stuff. He said when the demons get all comfortable, he said they stay in there a long time through their own negligence. You know that cobwebs get inside your body, in your house. You let bacteria and fungi get inside your body. You let your thoughts get corrupted with all these other things inside of your mind. He said they're in your own negligence. Because you do not seek after what is profitable for your inner beings. They necessarily compel them for the future to fulfill the desires of the demons that dwell inside of them, in your body. That's why this is the second day of the second month. That's what his house, tabernacle, tent, sanctuary, dwelling place. But what is worse, at the end of the age, when the demons will be co-signed to ageless fire, necessity, the Ruach also that obey him, your spirit. They want to corrupt your inner man, your spirit. Also that obeyed him will with him be tortured in ageless fires together with his body that it has polluted. So that means your flesh and your body. So you got your Ruach man and your outer man. And the demons want you to just worship idols. That's why they got everybody off the count and the time. That's why they got everybody all over the place in erratic religions. And these erratic thoughts don't line up with the Torah. And then guess what? Now they're on this pathway to having their bodies in ageless fire and their soul, the nefesh, their inner and outer being, both nefesh and ruach, because they got teachings of demons in their mind. Right, this fourth Baruch, chapter 6, 5 through 8, Pseudepigrapha, volume 2. And raising his eyes to Shamayim, he prayed, saying, "You are the Elohim who bestows a reward on those who love you. Prepare yourself, my heart, rejoice and be glad in your tabernacle, saying to your fleshly dwelling, your sorrows has turned into joy." Isn't that what that woman did? Yehudias did? She took off her garments of ashes and she put on her garments of joy. Because she was in sorrowful, and then she put on the garments of joy. And then she went to go and present herself. She had all the offerings and everything. And yet what happened? For the mighty one is coming and will raise you in your tabernacle. He will do what? He will raise you in your tabernacle, in your body. The day dawn and the day star will rise in your heart. And you know what happens? Because that's what happens to your plant. It opens when the sun comes. For has not spoken, it says, will raise you in your tabernacle, for has not spoken, for has not taken root in you. Right? It says, for the mighty one is coming and will raise you in your tabernacle, for has not taken root in you. Be refreshed within your tabernacle in your virgin Amunah, and believe and you will live. He's trying to raise you up inside of your body, because it ain't taking root in you. He said, be raised in your virgin faith. He said, believe and you will live. This is new Enoch 94, 3 through 5. And now I say to you, the righteous do not walk in the path of wicked and in violence, nor in the path of death. Do not approach them, lest you be destroyed. Why? Don't touch me. Why we say do not approach it? Just like the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, wicked, violence, and death. Do not approach them, lest you die. Why do you think he said that? What he said, what happened to the woman if she had touched the corner of the mountain? She would have died. Neither shall you touch it, lest you die. In the garden, he said, don't even approach people like this. Don't even handle this stuff. Wicked, violence. Do not walk in the path of wicked, violence, nor in the path of death, and do not approach them, lest you be destroyed. But love and choose for yourselves righteousness in a pleasing life, and walk in the paths of peace, so that you may live and have what? Have joy, that you may put on your garments of joy. And hold fast to my words in the thoughts of your hearts. Store up, just like we talked about in the first slide. He stored up. I hit the bar in my heart. I paid attention. I stored it up in my heart, in my mind, that I might not sin against you. And then what it says, and do not let them be eradicated by demons, Satan, Mustama, Abunala, Aldi, Alphras, Dagon, Ashtoreth, Asmodeus, Asmodee, Akoros, Aktun, Succubus and Ichabus, Ataf, Bakan, definitely Bakan, Baseda, Al-Salbi, like all these beings out here. There's a whole bunch more, but at the same time, they're going to be eradicated. For I know that sinners will deceive men to treat wisdom, Hakmah, wickedly. Because wisdom makes your face to shine. But you know they're going to do that. They're going to be talking about, you're too wise. Because when you get too wise, they say, oh, you know too much, right? And they be thinking this is a lie. This ain't a lie. This is nothing. But at the same time, small little things here and there can mess you up. And get what it says. So that she will not find a place. Because they don't want it inside of you. That's the only reason. That's why they tell you not to listen to it. And all kinds of temptations will not cease. You say you ain't never going to stop. You ain't going to never cut nothing off. You're going to never cut off that desire. You ain't never going to cut off. You're going to be following your virginity all over the place. You ain't never going to make a covenant with your eye or bereath and cut it. You ain't never going to do it. You're never going to do it according properly, and you're going to see yourself, you're not going to ever see it in your mind. You're going to do it, and you will never, he said, kinds of temptations will not cease. These people, I want my temptations to cease. I want all these things to stop. Then walk in the path of peace and joy. And don't follow after wickedness, violence, in the path of death that people be trying to put in your mind. Right? This is Odes of Solomon, Ode Shalom 33, 1 through 13. But Odes of Solomon, Ode 33, 1 through 13. But again, Khan was swift and repudiated and corrupted and descended upon him to renounce him. And he caused utter destruction before him and corrupted all his construction. And he stood on the path of a summit and cried aloud from one end of the earth to the other. Then he drew to him all those who obeyed him. No man come to the Abba except that Father will send him and draw him. And I'll raise him, I'll give him eternal life. I'll raise him up in the last day. Just like the plant comes up and the sun comes. For he did not appear as the evil one. However, the perfect virgin stood. The perfect virgin stood. And what did he do? Who was preaching and summoning, saying, O ye sons of Adam, return, and you daughters come. And abandon the ways of that corrupter and approach me. Abandon Satan. You get what it says? In Satan all. And I will enter into you and bring you forth from destruction and make you wise in the ways of truth. He said, I'll bring you right out of it. I'll take you right out. Some people think that they're not on the way to destruction, but they don't even know that they are. Why would they? They haven't been enlightened in their thought process. Be not corrupt, nor perish. Hear me and be saved, for I am proclaiming unto you the Khan of Yahuwah. That's all I'm doing. He said, I'm proclaiming to you the Khan, that they call grace of Yahuwah. And through me, you will be saved and become Barak. I am your judge. And get what it says. And they who have put me on, all that immersion you who shall put him on, will not be rejected, but they will possess incorruption in a new world, in the new world. My elect ones have walked with me, In my ways I shall make known to them who seek me, and I shall promise them my name. No, I'm not gonna have, they're gonna have a name. No, I'm gonna promise them my name. This 2 Corinthians 11:1. I wish you would bear with me a little in my foolishness. Do bear with me, for I feel a divine jealousy for you, since I betrothed you to one husband. Who was the only person that appeared after he turned all white? There's only one person. To present you as a pure virgin to Yahushua Mashiach, to the perfect virgin. But I am afraid that as a serpent deceived Kawua by his cunning, isn't that what Yehudias did? She said, man, we have more beauty. Y'all, now one of these men got to be alive. They use these women, they'll deceive the whole world. Isn't that what they said? The king of Assyria? But not understanding, but as I am afraid, as the serpent deceived Kawua by his cunning, your thoughts will be led astray from sincere, pure devotion to Mashiach. Like you're gonna have more than one. You know, people got like all these different names. They be like, man, which one you gonna pick? Man, you got how many lovers you got? Man, I got like 5 of them. I use them all. I said, you sure do. I understand. But I know you ain't no pure virgin. You say violence, hatred, evil, all the things, crude joking, gossip, slander. He said, I know you got, how many you got? I got like 10. He said, yeah, I understand. That ain't pure devotion. Like if people talking about pure devotion. So we know, remember that eunuch from Esther? Eunuch, an ineffectual person, a man who has been castrated or cut off certain desires, especially in the past, one employed to guard the women in living areas. That's why he said, that's what Shaul was. That's what you got to be. That's what he was. That's what he is. That's what he said. That's what I am. He said, I'm guarding women from what? I'm trying to present you a pure virgin to Yahushua Mashiach. So you won't have all these lovers when he come back here. So you won't have all these gods and idols in your heart when he come back here. So you have the right pattern to meet him, to purify yourself. So when he comes, you'll be in the same pattern like Mashah, like all Yahoo, like the 49-day count, like going to 7 celestial circles, like moving towards meeting him. I'm trying to make sure you do that, especially in the summertime. That's what Shaul is. I'm a eunuch. For the king of Yahuwah, he said, why do you think Shaul said, I'd rather have you even as I? Why? Because he's a eunuch. He's getting to guard women, to guard Isha, to present him as a pure virgin of Yahushua Mashiach. And he can't be around people with all these desires and wants. He can't be around the virgin of Yahuwah like that. That's the only way he can present a pure virgin to him. So he was like the bodyguard. You know how he would walk around like the bodyguard. Yeah, he said he a bodyguard. He like a bodyguard or something. Yeah, he like the bodyguard. Yeah, that's how a father should be, the bodyguard. I'm the bodyguard. Right? Think about a father and a daughter or daughters. Think about a malak waiting to see his bride, a virgin, right? That's what you got to think about. He said, I can't explain it. I'm telling you to think about a father and his daughter or daughters. Think about a malak waiting to see his bride, a king. That's supposed to be a pure virgin. And it's his job as a mother and a father to present that virgin to the king. This Dead Sea Scrolls, 4Q 257. These are the paths in the world to enlighten the heart of man and women. Straighten out in front of him all the paths of true justice, judgment. Establish in his heart respect for the precepts of Elohim and a ruach of meekness. And then what we talked about in Psalms 119, in the bit, in the bayit, talk about respect. He said, you don't respect what he said. And he says, because you got to respect what your father said. Because your father is only trying to present you a chaste version to Yahushua Mashiach. So you got to respect what your father said. Because that's what Yahuwah is doing. He only using a human being to try to to convey that to you. That's all he's doing. He'll be like, I'm a shot. And he said, no, you're not. Yahusha is the one who's that. He's like, you're just a servant. Of patient, generous compassion, eternal goodness, intelligence, understanding, potent wisdom, Hakmah, which trusts in all the deeds of Elohim, and depends on abundant mercy. Now, we ain't trusting all the deeds of Elohim. We'll be like that woman want to touch him after he rose from the grave. We'll be just like that. We'll be like the virgins who ain't defile themselves with Yahusha, and they go to a woman and defile themselves the third day, and then still offer to Yahuwah. Just like the book of Revelation, these are 144,000. These are virgins who not defile themselves with women, not fully understanding it. It says, understanding potent wisdom which trusts in all of these Elohim and depends on his abundant mercy, a ruach of knowledge in all plans of action, of enthusiasm, of decrees, of justice, and set apart plans with firm purpose, of generous compassion, with all the sons of truth, of magnificent purity, which detest all unclean idols. Just like Yusuf and Asenah, when people would come try to defile their virginity. It's the same way. Of careful behavior or wisdom concerning everything. They're going to treat wisdom wickedly, though, when you do it. Wisdom concerning everything. So that means everything you do has to be in Hakmah. It can't be without it. Of concealment concerning the truth of the mysteries of knowledge. Concealment, I've hid it. It's like translucent. I hid in my heart. It's like a treasure in my heart, in my mind. And it says right here, these are the foundations of the ruachs, the spirits of the sons of truth. This is the foundations of it. And the reward of those who walk in it will be healing, plentiful peace, and long life, fruitful offspring with everlasting barak, eternal enjoyment, endless life, and the crown of kabod and majestic raiment in eternal life. You know what happened to Yahushua in the totality? However, the ruach of deceit belong, deceit. You know what Yehudiah was doing? Right, he said, yeah, I got Yahuwah. I did all this fasting, but I did all this grieving, but I got a little deceit in my heart. Even though I look beautiful on the outside. I look like a Bethula, I look like a virgin, but I set stumbling blocks for strangers, though. I'm trying to take them out. I'm trying to take the vengeance into my own hand. Greed, sluggishness in the service of justice, wickedness, falsehood, pride, right hand of falsehood, pride, haughtiness of heart, dishonesty, trickery, Aydah, cruelty, Satan, much insecurity, impatience, much foolishness, impudent enthusiasm for appalling acts performed in lustful passions. I made a covenant with my eyes. A barik. Filthy past in the service of impurity, blasphemous tongue, blindness of eyes, your iron closed. Hardness of hearing, stiffness of neck, hardness of heart, in order to walk in the path of darkness and evil cunning. You were once in darkness, but now you're light. He said that's the only reason you walk in the spirit of ruach of deceit. And the visitation of those who walk in it will be abundance of afflictions of the hands of the Malachia of destruction for eternal damnation by the scorching wrath of Elohim of revenges, for permanent terror and shame, without end, humiliation of destruction by fire of the dark regions, of Tartarus, of the dark regions. And guess what happens after that? In all the ages of their generation, there shall be spent in bitter weeping, harsh evils and abyss and darkness until destruction, without there being a remnant or survival for them. Isn't that what Yehudiah was talking to the king of Assyria about? He was talking to the Assyrians about, wasn't that the things that were taking place in Yasharal during that time because they were disobedient to the bar? And remember what he said? Such women as these, if they have these many women, no men should survive because they can deceive the whole world with those women. And they thinking they going out and they disobeying the word, and they have these women. Look at these women we got, not even knowing. They deceiving the whole world, practicing cunning and evil, not even knowing that Yahuwah getting ready to take them down. to destruction. But that's a part of his will, though. Right? Because people think they're in alignment. This is Aleph Ukanan 2, 24 to 28. Let what you heard from the beginning abide in you. Just like we talk about in the beginning all the time. He made Adam in his own image and likeness and gave him authority to fish, sea, fowls, every creeping thing. In his image, Damuth Salim. Gave him authority to the fish of the sea, the Dagah, the oath, the birds, the behemoth, the beasts, and the ramiz, the insectoids. So you need not be afraid of those things. Because the ruach came down like a dove. If a dove is afraid to land on you, then something's wrong with you. If a bird, he said, man, animals are terrified of you, then something wrong with you. Then you too will abide in the Son and in the Father. And this is the promise that he has made to us. You mean the promise of his name? The promise of his name. Because the perfect virgin stood. It's eternal life. To know him. To know his patterns, how he thinks. And this is verse 26. I write these things about those who are trying to deceive you, trying to defile your virginity. That's all they're trying to do. They're trying to defile your virginity. But the anointing you receive from him abides in you. You have no need that anyone should teach you. Why? He said, you're a virgin. I already told you everything. You're a virgin. You don't need to get Satan don't need to be saying nothing to you. You know the bar. You should know it. You know why? Because Satan shouldn't be saying nothing to you. He shouldn't be trying to get you to doubt with errors and doubt. Matter of fact, his whole 3,000 malachim, 4,000, they shouldn't be coming to you. I don't care how many men it is. It's just like Yehudia when she walked through the camp and she had all the 100 men. They were all looking at her and she was the most beautiful thing and walking right through them with her other virgin. And they were walking right through the midst of them. He said, nobody should teach you. But the anointing teaches you about everything, and it's true, and it's no lie, just as it has taught you, abide in him. He said, you don't need to be talking to Satan. We are just like you're in the garden and Yehuda gave the command. He said, ain't no need to be talking to him. He come up to you, you already know what time it is. Because especially when you're alone, you know when you're alone and somebody come up and talk to you, you already know what that is. You should know. You should already know when you're alone. You know when somebody come up to you, you know that who they are. And they start speaking things out their mouth that they should not say. Or they start trying to teach something, they don't need to be teaching you nothing. Right? And now little children, right? Because children don't talk to strangers. Why? Because he's trying to present his children, his sons and daughters, that chaste virgins to Yahushua Mashiach as a bride. Abide in him, so that when he appears, we may have confidence. Okay, what happens when the sun comes? All the plants and the trees got confidence. And they all come out and sprout their leaves. And all of their brilliance and their beauty and their white and their pink of the myrtle tree. Their white of the cherry blossom tree. The green of the oak tree. And the maple tree. And all the plants and the fruits and the apple tree starts to sprout its leaves and yields its flowers. And all these things start to happen. That's the confidence they have that the sun has now appeared. But what you gonna do when you don't want to show your virginity, your myrtle virginity tree? You know the myrtle tree we saw with pink and all these different flowers by itself. What's gonna happen when the sun comes and you ain't got no confidence because you defile your virginity and not shrink from him in shame at his coming? You ain't gonna sprout no leaves. You ain't gonna sprout your flowers. You're not gonna sprout your who you are. You're not gonna show forth anything of who you are. You're just gonna be a dead branch with nothing on it. Because you shrunk back in shame when the sun came. Just like we see the natural sun. When Yahushua come, you ain't gonna rise. You're not gonna rise. You let them take your virginity, didn't you? You let them take something from you, didn't you? And that's how it is. And that's how you understand it. And that's how we should understand it. Not how we think we should understand it. It should already be in our thought process, moving towards the longest day. So we look at all that, look at Yahushua Mashiach, we look at the light of life, we look at the light of illumination. Just as the sun rises in the sky, in the Shamayim, so has Yahusha risen in our mind and our heart, that we may sprout forth in leaves and bring forth and show forth who one is. But we live in this world, we are not of it. But as we live in this world, we know we're surrounded by many deceivers, many anti-Mashiachs, and many false Nabi'im, and many false words and false hopes and false seeds, and false behaviors, and many things that can defile one's mind and heart and corrupt one's inner man. So as we live in this world, we are not of it. We said we seek to humble ourselves, even as a plant, and close our mind and our thoughts and our ears and our mouth from all these things, and make covenants with our ears and our mouth and our nose and our sensitivity within our virginity, our virgin life, to no longer be defiled. He said not to be defiled by the things of the world. For all is in the world, the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of this life. And all these things will defile you. And that Yahushua will not accept you when he comes. So as we move forward in the love and compassion that he exemplified, even as coming in the form of Mashah himself. For even as Mashah was the meekest man on the earth, so Yahushua was the meekest man on the earth. Even as Mashah spoke these words, he said, if they believe not Mashah or the Nabi'in, ain't no way they're going to believe you, even if you came from the other world of Tartarus and came back to them. So we look at ourselves as that being that's going to go down to the grave. Now all you do in this life, you must remember the Creator in the days of your youth. While the evil days draw nigh, while you get closer and closer back to the ground, but when your son comes back, you're going to hear his voice and you're going to rise from the grave, either on the first resurrection or the second resurrection. So we look at ourselves as these plants, these humble plants, but at the same time, we look at protecting ourselves with the full armor of Yahuwah Elohim. But even as Mashah was the meekest man on earth, so Yahusha said, Barak are the hunger, those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Barak are the poor in Ruach. Barak are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. The meek shall inherit the earth.